G'day, you're in the fortress of pop culture. I'm Tim Power, and I'm so glad you're here. Well, Darren Hayes, the former lead singer of the amazing musical duo Savage Garden, he's been meeting with fans, promoting the launch of his memoir, Unlovable. If you're an Aussie who grew up in the 70s or the 80s, where alcohol was a secret problem in your suburban family home, well, you're probably going to relate very strongly indeed with this book. We're about to talk to the wonderful Scott, who was lucky enough to meet Darren in Melbourne recently. Now, what's going on with Whoopi Goldberg? Does she need medical intervention, do you think? I loved this lady. And now she's accusing a family of bakers of not making her a birthday cupcake because she claims they were offended by her political views. Here's the kicker though, their oven was broken and they couldn't give a tosh who Whoopi votes for. Seriously, laying the boot into a family business because they can't bake you a cupcake? She's a long way from Sister Act, isn't she? The story she tells about this bakery also kind of suggests that she let the business know that it was her calling. So we possibly have one of those "don't you know who I am" moments. Whoopi's lost it, folks. The whole ordeal reminded me of that very traumatic childhood film.
Where's my king? You promised me my king! Bedelia, I'm your father.
Now, before we get into it, an opportunity for you. One simple gesture could land you a red vinyl copy of Two Hearts, the Kylie Minogue single from the X era. Yes, we've given one away before, but we're back with another little competition, and it's one where you have a very, very good chance of winning, I have to say. Well, compared to other competitions anyway. All you have to do is send me the briefest of voice notes. No more than 45 seconds. Start it with the words, jot this down folks, start it with these words: "G'day Tim, I enjoy listening to Time to Talk because..." And then I'll let you fill in the blank. One entry per person, and all the voice entries will become part of our future episodes. So get into it. Send me a voice memo. We'll draw the prize randomly in January. Everyone who sends me one of those voice notes gets an entry into the raffle. The email address is timetotalkaustralia@outlook.com. So what do you think? Should we walk into the fortress? Come on, take my hand. You think you know everything about Madonna, don't you? Well, challenge yourself. Let's go into the fortress. We're going to talk about Madonna, and then we're going to talk about Darren Hayes' new book. It's genuinely delightful to have you holding my hand as we walk up this hill. Coming to you from the mountain fortress of pop culture. You're listening to Time to Talk.
I use pledge and donation synonymous with one another.
But I don't. Miss Heard, I don't use it synonymously.
Eric and John, welcome to the fortress. How are you both?
Whoa, we did it.
You did it!
We made it. It's so exciting.
You have to walk up this huge path to the fortress, don't you? And you have to go through the vines, and you have to cut your way through and dodge the wild animals. It was a hard journey, right?
Yes,
Very
that's so
Australian,
worth
yeah.
it.
Very Australian. That's right. How did you find swimming through the moat?
Oh, it was delightful. The temperature was
Refreshing,
beautiful.
really.
Sorry. I just forgot to drop the drawbridge. I'm so sorry.
That's okay,
sorry.
that's okay. We feel welcome.
You guys have a great podcast. Tell the people about it.
Oh, thank you. That's nice of you to say. John, do you want to talk about it?
Sure. It's called the Celebration, and it started off as a way for us to celebrate the fact that we are going to be seeing the Madonna Celebration Tour. And so we initially just went through all of her tours, but then the date we were supposed to go, she didn't see it. I'm sorry, for some reason I don't seem to be showing up on the recording. Do you know if I'm recording or not?
Yeah, I can confirm you're all good. You're absolutely
good.
in the fortress, I promise.
Thank you. Oh, wonderful. Okay, good. Sorry. I didn't want to lose any of this gold. So initially we went through all of her tours, and then the date we were supposed to see her changed, as it did for a lot of people. So we did a lot more episodes where we go through like a lot of her performances and stuff like that. It's just sort of like a celebration of all things Madonna.
Have you both been Madonna fans for a long time?
Yes.
Since the 80s, yeah. Is that
Yeah,
a long
what
time?
about
That was
you?
like, what, 10 years ago? So, yeah.
You've been there since the beginning. I love it. As you worked your way through the tours, just out of interest, did one stand out as the clear, definitive Madonna tour, or is that an impossible task?
There is. It's both. We're going to answer. Yeah. I mean, I think Blonde Ambition, but also there's so many. They're all so good that it feels almost unfair to say that to me, because I love them all they're like kids, like they're her kids. I love all of her
For
kids
12 children, yes.
for different reasons.
Have any of them been adopted?
Co-opted.
No one's adopted MDNA yet, but we're still holding out hope for that one.
Disowned, in fact. Completely disowned. I think it just depends on when you became a fan, right? Because I understand most of the original fans, the OGs, they will go towards Blonde Ambition or possibly Girly Show. But there were plenty of Madonna fans. She picked up so many fans along the way, and Confessions and Hard Candy.
Yeah,
they
Sticky and
stand
Sweet
out.
is such a good show.
Yeah.
That's a really fun, solid show. Again, they all have like their pluses and minuses, but there's something about Blonde Ambition. First of all, it has the 1-2 punch of like, because of Truth or Dare, we feel like we really know the show. Like you feel like you're so much closer to
That's
that
true.
tour.
Yeah.
And also, it just in its place in history, like what it does now compared to other tours is not quite as impressive. But if you think of it in the context of the time, like it really was such a leveling up of pop concerts, and so that's why it has such a powerful like position within both her catalog and just also like pop music in general.
Absolutely. Now, look, you guys, you have the Celebration podcast. There's a lot of Madonna podcasts around. Which one stands out as the best?
Oh, they're all so good.
Again, we love them all in so many different ways. I think
The one that-
Inside the Groove is a really fun one because it's really like a music nerdy one. Like you
that finished
I
up
love it.
though, didn't it? I think
it did,
Yes.
unfortunately.
that's sad.
But I like that one too because Edward Russell's mind is so good at like hearing all those music things, and my mind is not. I kind of just hear like when he points it out, I'm like, oh yeah, I think that too. But
Edward, the host of that show, I often imagine him listening to any music, let alone Madonna's, and he just must rock like a madman because he's hearing every instrument, he's hearing every hook, every synth. It's like
Right, he's like
Rain
an
Man.
extra set of ears. He's like a dog or a cat who could just like hear frequencies that we can't.
Exactly, which
yeah, he's
makes
like,
me wonder
that
if
French horn.
yeah, exactly.
It sounds like a French horn from the 1800s with the way that brass is reverberating. Yeah, that one's great. I do enjoy all of them. I love All I Want to Do Is Talk About Madonna. I think that one is really fun.
Great
MLBC, I
podcast.
feel like, is like the queen mother of them all. I think it's been around the longest.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not surprising. Given her status, it's not surprising. There are a lot of podcasts dedicated to Madonna. So we're here today to talk about the little-known facts about Madonna that more people damn well should know about. That's a long title, but it's absolutely what it is. Hey, guys, I wanted to take you through. Can I take you through some facts that I don't know are facts? I'm going to call it Did She, Is She? Maybe that's a title. Let's come up with a stinger for that. Did she, is she? Is Madonna a vegetarian?
Yes,
I think so. Yeah.
I think she is.
I do know that when she came to a restaurant that I worked at, she ordered the cod.
She ordered the cod.
Oh, so
So
she might be a pescatarian.
Maybe pescatarian. There's also
Ah.
somebody saw a picture on Instagram. One of our co-hosts, I'm trying to think of who it was.
It was John
So-
Searles.
John Searle saw a picture that he thought of a plate of food of hers that looked like a piece of chicken, like a chicken cutlet. But that's
Oh.
confirmed.
Scandalous.
It could have been tofu carved. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love this. We've already have an unconfirmed piece of meat that Madonna may or may not have eaten. I
It
love
could have
it.
been tempeh, you know?
Could have
Right?
been,
Yeah.
could have been. Did she make Guy Ritchie get a circumcision?
No.
Oh, I can't imagine. Why would you do that?
How are you going to verify it?
Um,
Religious reasons, apparently.
Yeah.
She is, I think, does like to keep a tight leash on the men in her life.
That's certainly a tight leash.
Yeah, she'd have a necklace with that weird. I thought it was a piece of calamari, but maybe it was his foreskin on it.
It could have been, because Madonna
Could have
would be
been.
the type to keep it for a special occasion, wouldn't she?
Oh yeah, just to like have it to sort of like to lord over him, to just like remind him, like don't forget.
She'll be like hold it up and like a little bell, like waggle it back and forth, and be like,
Exactly. Like if she goes to visit him on set, like when she went to visit him on set, she'd just be like, "I have the don't forget, everyone."
Yeah, anytime he disagreed, she'd just like, remember this. Is it true that Madonna's bald because of all that bleaching?
"Oh man, you did like currently."
Bald as a plucked chicken, as they say.
I'd heard that had happened to her. I imagine that has happened, but I don't know. She's got really good people. She's got top shelf people working on her hair. I don't think she's getting like Clairol from the box.
All right, we'll put an I don't know
Lola do
there.
her hair. Yeah.
We'll put a pin in that one. What about this one? Was it true that she was about to release a documentary called Baby using real footage from the birth of Lola?
I've never heard that.
Haven't heard that. Hasn't shown up on YouTube just yet, but I'll keep searching for it.
Well, thank you for humouring me here. What about, was she the one speaking on the Michael Jackson song In the Closet?
No, but they were supposed to. They initially were going to be working on that together, but
That's
then
right.
she apparently did want to talk about, because like In the Closet, so you think, your mind goes a certain place, but he didn't want to go there, so she was like, all right, this is boring. Which is too bad. It would be great to have a Madonna Michael Jackson
Such
collab.
a missed opportunity, wasn't it?
I know.
I wish that had happened. What about
Me
that?
too.
Was she going to be the star of a female version of the Terminator?
Oh,
Because of her arms.
I
What?
do know that there's an interview with Linda
Oh, the
Hamilton.
shade.
A Linda Hamilton interview back when Terminator 2 came out, and she said that she told her personal trainer that she wanted her body to look like Madonna's.
Right. So it could have stemmed from there, you reckon?
Yeah.
Mhm. And she had that series of gyms for a while, so maybe.
Oh yeah.
And
Hard
what
Candy
about this
Fitness.
one? This is my absolute favorite because Zuckerberg keeps sending it to me and I never cease stopping on it. That there's a
Oh, wow.
photo of a young Madonna meeting Elvis to get his
Oh.
autograph.
I saw that.
I
How
have not
good is
seen
it?
this.
You haven't seen it, John?
No.
Let me describe
Zuckerberg and
it.
I haven't spoken in a while, so that might be why.
You don't speak lizard then,
No.
by the sound of it. So, yeah, look, basically it's this awesome photo. Most people listening would have had it pop up. And the funny thing is, I reckon more than 50% of people believe it's true. It's this awesome photo of Elvis with lots of young female fans around him sort of screaming and jumping and shoving a piece of paper and a pen into his face. And one of them does look
Like
it's
a 12-year-old
making me laugh
Madonna.
still. It truly does. One of them looks basically like Lola when she was a girl,
Yeah.
like a young Madonna.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I
yes.
do remember, I think John and I just both reread Life with My Sister Madonna. And that photo I saw after, like some weeks after I finished reading it. But I have in my mind a memory that Christopher Ciccone in that book talks about his family going to see an Elvis concert.
Oh, so adds
wow.
fuel to the conspiracy. I see.
Yeah. Also,
How good is that
possibly a
book, by
false
the
memory
way?
of mine. Have you read it?
Oh, I've many times, and I
Yeah.
also had the version where he read it, and I loved
Wow.
listening to it again with that. It's hard to find now, but going back and reading it after his passing, how was that for you both?
It's sad.
I read it right before he passed away.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the first time. It's hit or miss. Like there's definitely some stuff in there that's really interesting and you kind of wanted to know more about. But then there's some other things, where he will be like, she told all this personal stuff during The Advocate and it felt like a real betrayal of like our personal trust. And you're reading it going like, well, what is this book then that you're doing?
Yeah, there was a bit of
He's like,
hypocrisy there.
in his mind, he's like, she drew first blood. Like,
Right.
she did it first. Now, okay, I can do it too. They have I think they had like ultimately a really good relationship, but it's complex. Family is complex.
Yeah, well, and to be honest, like Madonna is someone who hopefully we all know that she doesn't forgive easily. The fact that they were able to reconnect in the last year of his life or so is a wonderful thing, because when you cross Madonna, she cuts you out. It's as simple as that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I guess, but the thing is with families is like, no matter what happens, like he's still her brother. You know what I mean? Like she could be like, I collaborated with these people. I was married to you. I dated you. I worked with you. And then you can stop and then that's fine. Whereas like, well, no matter what happens, he's always going to be your brother.
Is it wrong for fans to read that book, given that, it absolutely is? It's very fly on the wall. It's quite graphic. And we know that Madonna didn't want it written. So is it wrong for a Madonna fan to read it?
I mean, it's actually ultimately it's not that horrible. I mean, I suppose if you're a real true, if you're that level of Madonna fan that you wouldn't want to read it, then I don't know.
Well, I've been accused of all kinds. I've spoken about the book, and people hate me for it. But of course, I'm going to read it. It's the most insight we possibly will ever get into those years of Madonna's life. What always stands out to me about that book is the money. And I know that people that come from relative poverty, I wouldn't go as far as to say poverty, but not having much money,
right,
will treat money quite differently. But when Madonna was absolutely arguing with him over checks in thousands of dollars, yet alone hundreds, it seemed ridiculous to me. It did tell me a lot about her, that she would squibble over ridiculous amounts of money like that. He'd be waiting to be paid for work that he did, and she would basically blackmail him and make him beg for it. It seems very. I mean, look, that's his version of events, of course.
Right.
Yeah, but it still was very odd.
I think that the things that like what I think of as like her control issues, and I think that sometimes the things that one, like kind of like being the head of this empire that feeds and pays so many people, especially like at that time, so many people were just making their living off of Madonna-ness. And I think like to try to keep some sort of like reign on that would be very challenging. And I think that there were like things that he might have like left out or like graced over. I think there were parts of his life where she was like, I'm not going to give you money to buy drugs. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, that would be one legitimate explanation, because it was hard to understand why he was having to go to her and say, please, can you pay me for this work? I understand, the gravy train that you raised and needing to monitor that. But the fact is, he did work for her, and there were times where she didn't hand over the money. But if you're suggesting it's because she was being protective, well, yeah, maybe that's true.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just like that sort of like was something that I like thought, who knows?
Was possible.
It's like that I was like, I think they argued a lot about what constitutes partying and what constitutes like just like serious drug use.
Yeah.
Hi, this isn't Kylie Minogue, and I love listening to Time to Talk.
So who's going to start us off? What are the little known facts about Madonna that we all should damn well know about, as I have retitled the podcast?
Well, we kind of took it a little different. We didn't quite go there. We sort of went with more like moments that we feel like should be talked about more. So people might know of these or sort of like be aware of them, but we still feel like we can still talk about them.
And I have no idea what I prescribed to you, because I've only just got home after traveling. So I was writing to you on the fly without any instruction, but I've got 3 for what it's worth, or maybe 4.
Oh,
but
awesome.
You just go for as many as you want. But kick us off, someone. Is it going to be Eric or John from the Celebration podcast? Am I getting that right, by the way? It is called Celebration.
The Celebration. Yes, no, you got it right. I'll go first. So the first one we want to talk about was from 2015 on the Brit Awards, when she performed Living for Love, and she had that notorious, iconic Kate pole that knocked her over. Just because it's such a fascinating moment. Do you know the moment we're talking about?
I love it, and I think I know where you're heading, but I'll let you tell the story.
So she's doing "Living for Love." It's the Rebel Heart. She's like that album and that tour is about to launch, and so she's performing "Living for Love" on the Brit Awards, and it starts with her like walking up, and there's just like this, the voiceover, her being like, "We're gonna have a revolution," and these people carrying this super long cloak that she has. She goes up this mini set of stairs, and you can see her like slowly trying to like untie the cloak from or from around her neck before they're gonna like pull it off, but she doesn't get it in time, and so they yank her back, and she just falls all the way down. It's like 3 steps, lands on her head, and she's surrounded by like 20 dancers who all have these like diamond encrusted bull heads on, and it's like this frightening moment where like I'm sure they're like, is she dead? Like, did we just kill Madonna?
On TV.
But it works so well with the song. Because the lyrics are she actually gets up, she goes on with the number, but the lyrics are, "Took me to heaven, let me fall down. Now that it's over, I'm gonna carry on." And she does it. Like it's so perfect with the song. It's such a perfect moment that we feel like she should always do that whenever she does "Living for Love."
Yeah. She should always do it. She should repeat this.
It should always be a choreographed fall. Like it just more pratfalls. We think Madonna could do with more pratfalls in her like overall catalog.
Absolutely. And then she got into a big argument with the poor dude who invented or created the cape. I remember that very well as well.
Oh, someone got fired after that. Yeah.
Absolutely. But it was like you say, it was a very poetic moment given the lyrics of a song. And we don't often see Madonna looking vulnerable. I remember just feeling like those feelings you get when someone looks vulnerable, protective, I suppose.
Yeah.
Her face and her hair was all tousled, and I was quite upset actually in that moment.
I was too, and I wanted to like grab her and like carry her off stage, but I think I would have been doing a disservice to the bigger picture, because watching her come back from it and like rally, and she had like a little look in her eye that was like, "Motherfucker, I'm gonna fucking get this."
Yeah.
Can I swear on this?
Please do swear more. Swear more.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. She's like, "You cunts."
No, you can't say that.
Well, sorry. Watching her, just like reclaim it and just like be like, "Oh, I can do this." Was really cool.
And it is such a good song that doesn't get its due. Like I feel like that whole album really has so much great stuff in it that people don't really talk about.
Oh, it's a brilliant album. I think it was a strange choice for lead single. I also thought the video clip, I don't know what went on with the color correction there. Jesus.
It was
bloody awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got to watch it even if you watch it on an OLED TV, it's still strange. Like, I think I know what they were trying to do, but they did something wrong there, in my opinion. The choreography, the setup, everything else was brilliant about it, though. Really great, really great. Can I share one with you about Madonna?
Please.
Yes.
I don't know if many people know this, but when I was reading one of those biographies that she would hate, but written by a reputable chap, I just can't pronounce his surname. He told the story about when she got the role of Evita, and we all know she campaigned so hard to get it. Mm-hmm. She hand wrote the 4-page letter and sent it to them and all that sort of stuff. She loves telling that story. But when she eventually got the role and she landed in the studio, all her control had to be handed over, because she usually surrounds herself with, everyone in the studio. She's hand chosen, right?
Right.
But not here. And so when they were getting her to sing live and sing differently, and she didn't have the technicians in the room that she's used to, she really struggled. Not to mention it was a brand new way of singing for her, I suppose, other than on Breathless, possibly. So, I just found that story really interesting. In the studio, even she concedes that she was close to breaking down, and it took her several sessions before she could relax into recording the Evita soundtrack.
Yeah, and I think that
I've also heard that...
Go ahead, John.
No, go ahead.
No, you go.
I've also heard that she's so used to just like having it be like a smaller group of people, but then for Evita, they had the whole orchestra to play with her live, and she was so not used to having all of those people there, and that really put her in her head.
Yeah. I mean, she already would have felt insecure about it, because it's easy now to look back and go, well, she did a great job on Evita.
Right.
But there was a lot of cynicism. Madonna's playing that role. Are you serious? All of that. So all these people, like you say, in the orchestra watching her, it would have been rather intimidating, to say the least.
It would be for me.
That's a good one. Eric, want to do the next one?
Yeah, but tell me which one it is. I forgot.
I have the list, MTV.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, so the next moment that we want to talk about was it 1995?
1995. Yeah.
She's gotten a MTV Video Award, and Kurt Loder's interviewing her outside after the ceremony, and
And she's
she's
like, this is like she something to remember is about to come out, that album.
yes,
She's about to record Evita actually. So she's like really like when Madonna was like she's sort of putting erotica and all of that behind her, and she's trying to be like
she's being
really
like,
elegant and respect.
I can play, I can be a Hollywood star, I can do what's asked of me, I can do just a straightforward interview. I'm going to behave. I'm going to answer your questions. I'm not going to be a brat. I'm going to show you that I can, if you give me an Oscar, I will show up in an appropriate dress and I will do the task at hand. And Courtney Love throws that all out the window
Crashes
for
the
everybody
party.
involved. Yeah, she starts throwing her compact at Madonna, and then Kurt Loder is like, "Well, Courtney's here. I guess we should ask her up." And then Courtney Love comes and kind of derails the interview in a very Courtney Love way. And Madonna is, I think, very well behaved considering. Like she balances the task at hand with like, I'm gonna throw some barbs in, but I'm still gonna be polite and generous and let Courtney be the crazy one. And
It, yeah. It was a real test for Madonna because you could, because even Kurt's like, should we invite her up? And Madonna's like, don't invite her up. But she's
yeah,
like, Courtney's like halfway up the stairs already. So like, there's no turning back. And you could tell Madonna's just like, oh God, I do not want to have to deal with this. But it's so fascinating to watch her have to be like, oh, I really want to like rip into this horrible woman, but I have to be the good girl. It's a rare
You're
moment of like Madonna not being the agent of chaos and being completely like not in control of the situation.
You're absolutely right. Watching her having to contain herself, that's the theatre in that particular
yes,
snippet. It really is. And she did it. She did a good job. And let's be honest, it could have went a lot more haywire. That lady was off her face, up
Oh
on
yeah,
the
she was drunk.
yeah.
totally right. Could have went worse. So the fact that Madonna regulated herself was very important, and I'm so glad she did. Because who knows
And
where that could have ended up.
when she leaves, like I think Liz Rosenberg comes and pulls her off, like, come on, we got to go. We have another thing to do, and like ends it. And Madonna like stops, and like Courtney Love's on the ground at that point because she's trying to show Madonna her shoes, and Madonna bends over and like kisses her on the cheek, like I think both cheeks, and she's like, she ends it very sweetly. There's nothing that anyone watching that could be like I think Madonna was very gracious.
Oh yeah, there was definitely some respect there, but Madonna can recognize a loose cannon when she
Yeah.
sees
Oh
one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She definitely was like, there's me staying here. There's nothing to gain inside for me. I'm sure she was like in her mind was like, Liz, come get me, Liz. Why is it taking so long?
I want to remind people about the fact that we all know Madonna's adopted children, but
Yes.
I think that it's underestimated what she actually went through to adopt David and Mercy initially.
Oh right.
Yeah, she had to do a lot.
Yeah, she really did, and it's quite fascinating because the media portrayal was very much, well, Madonna gets what Madonna wants, and she's a rich, white, entitled person plucking children from a poverty-stricken nation. And even though that's absolutely unfair, there is some element of truth to the fact that the family, I'll give you an example. She went over there to collect Mercy, but she didn't. She came home with David. And there absolutely are family members, or were family members, I don't know how they feel today, I don't know, but at the time who really didn't want those children to be adopted or certainly leave the country and their family to go and live with Madonna. Mercy, her mother was, I believe, 14 and died in childbirth, and that's why she is called Mercy. That's where her name came from. Anyway, I just thought it was worth talking about that complicated family dynamic that Madonna had to work through when the focus is always just on just the adoption, going into Africa and plucking a child. It was much more complicated than that. So, and as far as I know, she maintains the links, which is the most important thing, between her children, her adopted children, and their families.
Yes, and she brings them back to Malawi,
Yes.
I think, fairly regularly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't think that I think luckily she has the means to do that. There's no part of like It doesn't seem at all like you're mine now, forget your past. Even in the most recent tour, like having David sing Mother and Father with her and show pictures of his mother and her mother, like I feel very much like she's like, this is all part of our family.
She's so progressive. Like people I know that she adopted them, but she did it in, I don't want to get too technical, but there's closed adoption, there's open adoption. Closed adoption being when a child doesn't even know who their family is, and open adoption where you maintain biological links because it is so important for one's well-being. And the fact that she's done all of that is amazing. And look, you can only measure it by the voice of the children, and they adore Madonna, and they seem really beautifully raised to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
I
they're
think
also
the fact
talented.
that they're also talented. I think also the fact that like she had like because of what happened with her mother and how her father, I think it was more of just a product of the time of like, you know, there was a sense of like, don't talk about it. It's so sad. Let's just not talk about it,
Yeah.
as if that would go away. And we know now that like that's not the best way to deal with this, you know, an understandably traumatic situation. And so I think she's much more like sensitive and like aware of like what are the best ways to do this. And I'm sure she's got like the best therapist that money can buy. To like help them all navigate that.
As an aside, what a show pony is David, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. If there's a camera around, he's in front of it, isn't he?
Yeah, he's like I think he can do probably like whatever he wants with his life. He seems to just be like so talented, so like strikingly beautiful, and just seems really smart and kind.
Yeah. Yeah, like I say, and I know people that on the Celebration tour got the privilege of mixing slightly in the circles behind the scenes, and those people have all reported back to me. That's a bad way of putting it, but they've all shared with me. Let's put it that way. They weren't my spies, sure. I promise. They weren't my spies, but they've shared with me that there is a real family, almost Partridge Family style of thing happening behind this, and I just think that's so beautiful. I think it's amazing. Amazing.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah.
Years ago, I actually met someone who was, I don't remember her name, but she was Madonna's assistant for several years. And
poor woman.
Her friend. And so, you know, when my friend said, oh, this is, you know, she's Madonna's assistant, I said, the first thing out of my mouth were, tell me everything you're legally allowed to tell me. And she sort of laughed. She's like, well, there's some stuff I can't. But like and what she said was stuff that wasn't that surprising. She's like, you know, like, she's a very busy woman, you know, like, but she said like she wasn't mean, like she wasn't someone who would like knock something off a table and then be like, pick that up. But you know, she was like, she's someone whose time is very valuable. And you know, she said that like, oh, with Madonna, like she likes options. So if it was a situation of like, oh, now suddenly on Wednesday, you know, it's Monday and on Wednesday we all have to fly to Paris, it wouldn't just be like get tickets. She would, you know, she would have to say like, okay, we can either leave Tuesday night and then go to London and then go to Paris, or we could go on, you know, Monday after, you know, like whatever shit. And then Madonna would pick something. And
Options.
But then I sort of said, and I don't remember how it came up, but I didn't even say anything. But this was when, this is before she adopted any kids. So it was just Rocco and Lola and Lourdes. And she was like, oh, she's very involved in their life. She was like, she is not like like she's very much involved. She's very much a mother. Like she's not, it's not a case of like the children are being raised by someone else. She was like emphatically like, Madonna is there and present and like very active in their lives.
And I think the point of all of these stories is that there's a lot of substance to it and family first. And I really think, and she deliberately doesn't really put that out there in the public frame, but this is a lady who I think if you were in her family, I think you'd feel that loyalty, you'd feel that protectiveness. I think she'd do anything for you. And that assistant you're talking about, did she ever report having to, you know, dodge an angry piece of flying tofu on occasion or anything like that?
She said no. She said never. She said no. She said it was, you know, like she would sometimes be like impatient and demanding, but she was like, but she was, you know, she is a very busy woman. But she said she wasn't irrational. Like there was never any like truly crazy thing of like
no Naomi Campbell's then.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
There's no phones.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes amateurs know best, and a lack of professionalism is all you'll hear on the Time to Talk show. Join Tim and his panel of guests as they wade their way through a range of news, music, and pop culture treats. Time to Talk, the show hosted by amateurs for unprofessional listeners. Amateurs, is this the best that they could do?
So next we want to talk about. I don't know. There's a one-night show she did. It was in Australia. Tears of a Clown. Do you know about this? Have you ever seen it?
The sight of Madonna riding a very small clown bike.
A little tricycle, right.
Pink hair just before her. It was probably what caused the knee injury. Yes, it's sort of emblazoned on my brain, yes.
Well, she did it. She did it near the end of her Rebel Heart tour when she was in Australia, and she did it only for one night in Australia and she said it was for her Australian fans because she hadn't been there in so long. Yeah. And it was more like a storytelling show that she did, and you had to be a member of her fan group in order to get tickets and all that stuff. She started 4 hours late, which classic Madonna. But it was kind of like a storytelling show, basically. It had nothing to do with actual clowning as we sort of think of it today. But we saw there, and there's a bootleg you can see online. It's not available officially anywhere.
Yeah.
But we saw. I think it's like a great first draft of something that I would love to see her really work on and craft. But I don't think she's ever going to.
Oh, I hope not.
She actually did do it one other time as part of a fundraiser, and I've heard the audio of that, and she seemed so miserable that I'm like, well, she's never doing this again. So you didn't like it.
There's seeds of something in there that, like, Madonna telling stories about her life from her point of view with song, like her cabaret act is something that I'd be like, yeah, you should work on that. Like you have.
Yeah, no.
But
Madonna sees herself as this, like she's said it many times in interviews that she'd love just to have a stool and a glass of water and an audience. Yeah. It's like, but Madonna, that's a lovely idea, but you're not Graham Norton. You can't do it, my friend. She did that horrible stand-up on, was it Jimmy Fallon, I think. She's not the best storyteller. She thinks she's extremely funny. She thinks she's a great storyteller. She ain't. Well, not in those mediums, at least.
Well, what's tough, I think, is that, like, she's so surrounded by sycophants that, like, she needs to, I think she could be good, but she needs to, like, not be Madonna and go somewhere and, like, get good at it.
That would require acting.
But it would also require, like, because, like, there's no way that an audience is just going to be like, oh, okay, we're just, like, listening to this person tell stories, as opposed to, like, oh my God, it's Madonna. You know, I mean, you can even tell with the audience, they're just, like, so rabidly supporting her that there's no way that she can get any real sort of
I don't know. I saw in the Madam X, she ventured out into the land of the poor suckers and sat on a few laps. And yeah, I've watched the YouTube clips, and yeah, I don't think the audience were rabidly on her side. I think they were like, "What the hell? The hell is going on here?"
But there's a lot of like they do scream out like, "We love you!" Like, you know.
Oh well, that's true. That's true. That probably, like, I also, if you listen carefully enough, you can hear "Get on with it." That might have just been me.
It was a different bootleg, yeah.
Hey, this one is a little known fact that I want you guys to verify and help me with, if you can, because I've never really got to the bottom of it. Junior Vasquez, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't really know this story. All I know is that there was some sort of, he got annoyed with her for not turning up to something or other, one of his events, called her selfish, and then she left a voice, like, what do we call it back in the day? An answering machine message.
Yeah.
And then he used it, which I find quite clever. He used it as a sample in a song called, what was it? Don't Call.
It's like
If Madonna Calls.
If Madonna Calls, yeah.
If Madonna Calls, tell her I'm not here.
And talk about, we spoke at the beginning about Unforgiving. I don't think she's ever worked with him again. I think he's remixed a few things. But anyway, what's the deal there? Was that a revenge song?
I think so.
I think so, but it's also like not that big of a deal. It's just like the clip of her is like, hey Junior, this is Madonna, are you there? She like waits a second, she goes, call me in Miami, and then that's it. And then it's just a beat, and then him being like, if Madonna calls, tell her I'm not home, and then it's just like a beat. Like,
and then it goes really a bit like this, doesn't it? It goes, call me in Miami, call me in Miami, call me in Miami, call me in Miami. It's like, it's not even a great song. Apparently it got lots of praise. I listened to it and go, no, not so great, Junior.
No, I think it's one of those things too where like you're not supposed to actually listen to it. Like you're supposed to be in a club. Like if you're listening to it and like there's sunlight, you're listening to it wrong.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like you should be in a club. It should be dark. It should be mixed with other things. There should be a lot of stimulus. You should be on some sort of
Something.
party enhancement. You know what I mean? Like, it's not meant to like sit and listen to. Is what I
So,
think
John, the
ultimately
very
that
next
song.
day, you're meant to wake up and go, I think I spoke to Madonna last night.
Madonna
Yeah.
called me? Yeah, exactly. It's not
Got
meant to
your
like be the scrutiny of daylight. It does not hold up to it at all.
There you go. Well, thank you for helping me get to the bottom of that. It's always fascinated me. It's one I couldn't quite dig into. It's hard to find on YouTube and da. So thank you for that. Have you guys got some left, some tidbits left?
We would like to just like take a second to talk about the movie Body of Evidence. We wanted to talk about one of her movies that's not Desperately Seeking Susan.
Oh, dear. Here we go. All right.
So
Strap yourself in, folks.
she has some good moments in this movie. There's maybe like
The sex scenes.
Oh yeah, this like she
Those
looks
sex
great.
scenes they're sort of fascinating to look at because it's both of them and they're doing things that you're like, I think they're actually having sex right now, or they're like actually having actual legit sexual activity is going, because there's no way you can fake that.
It's not a great movie.
No.
It's very much like if there's a Saturday, like a rainy afternoon, and you can't go outside, and it like comes on TV, which it won't because nobody's playing it. But if it did, and you sit down and and you're just like, all right, I'm going to go on this ride. It's not like you're not rolling your eyes the whole time. You're like, okay, I'll follow this story. What happens next? And she has like one really good line reading when he tells her how much money is in the guy's will that she's accused of killing. And she goes, it's a hell of a motive. And I think I'm like, oh, you fucking nailed that line. I don't know.
She has like moments, and it is that thing too of like it's the right kind of failure in that it is a spectacular one.
Yeah.
Like, it's not boring. You're constantly going, what movie do they think they're making? And if you try to imagine and pretend you're watching that movie, it may be interesting or at least better. But it is in the world of like a Showgirls or a Mommy Dearest, where you're just like, how the separation for what everyone thinks they're doing and what they're actually doing, that chasm is so fascinating to see how disparate and how apart those two poles are.
I love the way Eric put it, though. It's the movie that you watch when you're sick on the couch and you can't reach the remote control.
Yeah. And then you're like, all right, I'll just go with
when
it.
You're being held hostage.
I'll just let it happen to me.
It's going to be easier if I don't struggle.
She wants to tie my hands behind my back with a belt. Just let her do it.
I have another one. Do you want to hear it?
Let's hear
Absolutely.
it.
Okay. That Madonna, I think most people know this, but that Madonna is related to Ellen DeGeneres.
What?
Really?
Yes, they are, through a common great-grandfather. Absolutely. And they did
my
talk
God,
about
the
it when
talent
she
runs strong in that bloodline.
I wouldn't say Ellen's talented. No, I think it missed her side of the family. But yeah, you couldn't get more opposite people, right? I mean, Madonna's a material girl, whereas Ellen can be quite degenerate.
Oh,
Indeed.
Oh dear God.
Well,
I'm going to leave the studio now. I'm sorry about that.
Well, it was really nice visiting your fortress.
I worked on that too, by the way. I workshopped it.
Well, you said you just came back from a business trip, so you're probably jet lagged. But she is related. She is like somewhat like distant cousins with Celine Dion. I know that's true.
No.
One of my cousins is like big in Irish family, Flynn. He's like big in genealogy, and apparently my family, we are cousins 16th times removed from Madonna, Celine Dion, and Beyonce. And if you knew what I look like, you would know that if I'm cousin 16 times removed from Beyonce, then so is everybody. If you go back with genealogy, we're all kind of related.
Well, that's right. But I mean, they're more closely related. A great-grandfather. That's not too bad. That's pretty close.
Wow.
That's pretty close.
I haven't heard
that's
that
exciting.
Yeah, they talked. I mean, Madonna went on that show so many times, and they talked about it. I think it was the one where she was wearing the MDNA Cone Vogue bra.
Oh yeah.
Oh right, yeah.
I think that's the episode where they talk about it there. So yeah, very interesting. I mean, not particularly interesting, but there you go. I threw it in there.
I didn't know it this morning, and now I know it.
Well, that's it. And your life is richer for it, right? So before we go, my friends, what's the future for Madonna? Please confirm to me, please. Otherwise, I won't be able to sleep. She's not working on that bloody biopic, I hope.
She just posted on Instagram today.
She didn't. No.
Well, what she posted was she was in LA and she was, she met with all these people and they were giving her all these notes and pushback on the biopic. And she decided, so now she's thinking she might do a series, like rather than just a movie, like do a whole series. Which I think would probably be, really? I think that would be better because I think just a movie, if she tried to do her whole life in just a movie, it would be just ridiculous and just like trying to cram all that in there. So I think like a multiple part docuseries, I think would be more interesting, would be allowed to be a more interesting look at her life rather than just.
So sorry, a docuseries rather than a biopic now?
I don't know. I think a scripted series.
Oh, okay.
Oh no.
She was like, vote, like weigh in, everybody. Should I do a movie or a series? But I think it would still be a scripted and acted series.
This will only end badly. You've heard it here first. This is a terrible idea. Look, I respect the concept, but I'm not going to let no man make. What am I doing? A Roseanne accent now?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Really...
I'm not going to let a man tell my story. It's like, oh, stop it, lady. You're so sexist. Like, who cares if it's a man or a woman making? So as long as it's somebody who's got the talent to make it. The fact that she puts herself in the center of it and that. She's had so many writers sitting on that bloody couch on Instagram. Oh my God, it's got to stop. Someone stop her.
I hear everything you're saying and I can't refute it. But whatever she does and the more she does it, the bigger it gets. I cannot wait to watch it.
Oh no, what about that? There was a really awesomely talented woman, right? I don't know. You'll know her name and I don't, but she was a famous screenwriter.
Diablo Cody?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yes.
And
she was the first one, yeah.
And I think it was during COVID, so I had nothing better to do than watch a live stream that went for about 9 hours. And that poor lady, honestly, she was a hostage. She was looking for the exits.
Well, sure.
My friend Mike said Diablo Cody looks like she's wearing many hats in that situation. Because you know that like some of the pictures Madonna was like, all right, now let's do like a modeling shoot. And like Diablo's like, oh, we're talking about the end of Act 2.
And Madonna's sliding off the couch because she finds herself so funny. And this woman is just asking the waiter, can I have a floor plan of the house, please? It's just awful. Paul, and as far as I know, she's not working on it anymore. Is that right?
No, they did a draft together. No. They handed it in to Paramount. And then...
and then what?
Yeah, Paramount was like, here's some notes. Yeah, and she was like, I completed my assignment. Thank you.
Right. Yeah.
I've got all the stories I need, so thank you.
Wow. But I mean, don't you also despair that not only is she doing a biopic, which is, I'd love a story about Madonna, but I just don't think she should be. I don't think she's got the objectivity, to say the least, to do that. But don't you despair that it's taking her away from the main event too? Where's the next album? Where's the next single?
Next album?
Yeah.
She has been in the studio with Stuart Price, but John thinks that is because they were working on like the final
remixing the tour DVD and like CD, or
so we'll see that in another 3 years' time.
Yeah,
I mean, Madonna, she should never be allowed anywhere near an editing suite. It's terrible. She debates for 4 weeks about a shot of her ass. It's unbelievable. No wonder. I mean, after Rebel Heart, I really wanted to go into the lobby, pick up my copy, take it home and watch it. I had to wait, I think, 3.5 years to get my copy of Rebel Heart. And then when I saw it, I had an epileptic fit.
Yeah, she's really over editing lately. The last couple tours have been really like, I just want to, like, if you watch Who's That Girl, where it feels almost like there's a camera in the back of the stadium and we're seeing what you would see if you were there. Yeah. And now it's like she should just do like a visual album if that's what she wants to do. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's what she's.
When you think about it, think of Blonde Ambition, even though that's hard to get, and Girly Show, the way they were shot, beautiful, right? You felt like you were there. But Madam X, like I have issued this challenge before, I'll issue it one more time. Go and watch it, and if you can send me a shot that lasts more than 6 seconds in the whole DVD or whatever you want to call it, then I'll send you a vinyl copy of Two Hearts by Kylie Minogue. I will do it. So, guys, your podcast is on ice at the moment, from what it looks like. Are you getting back into it?
We are planning on getting back together at the beginning of the new year. We're going to definitely go back to doing it much more regularly.
You've got a great dynamic, so don't give it up,
Thank
will you?
you.
What are you going to focus on next?
We think we're going to do a book club.
Who are you, Oprah Winfrey? What the hell are you talking about?
Just one episode. We think we want to do Life with My Sister Madonna.
Oh,
Discuss
I
that.
see.
A deeper
Yeah.
dive.
Oh, that'd be interesting. I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
So, and you're not getting into each reviewing her albums in retrospect or anything like that.
We might do that.
Yeah.
I know you've done that. Those are really fun to listen to. Oh, what I was going to say. So listening to your podcast, realizing you're such a huge Kylie fan, Eric and I, when we saw the tour, we were there the night that Kylie was her guest.
Get out!
It was so exciting. It was
Oh my
awesome.
God! I'm
Yeah.
so excited. I can't imagine, because if it emanated through the screen and through the YouTube clips, how special it was. I just thought, imagine being there.
It was so exciting when she announced, because obviously, like no one knew, like we had no idea. And it's because like we saw her in LA, and then I live in LA, and I've yet to see a concert where someone doesn't have a lot of just random guests come in. Like it always happens.
Because
Yeah.
And
everybody's
so
there.
we saw, it
yeah.
was like her third night, because everyone lives out here. So we saw it the third night, and no one had done it before outside of, the Vogue, guest spot, which doesn't really do much. So it was like, oh, she probably won't have one. But then when she's like, I'm going to bring out my good friend Kylie Minogue, Eric, who's sitting right next to me, just without thinking, just like shot up, like just stood up immediately. Was like looking around, like, oh my God, everyone, what's happening? Like, let's all calm down. This is like, it was so exciting. When she
This
came out.
is not a drill.
Yes, yeah.
I would have rushed for stage. Honestly, I've been, for the longest time, like so many fans, I've been waiting to see a photo of them together. It was just so special, though, wasn't it? It was a really special moment.
It was gorgeous.
It was really, really a beautiful moment.
All right, tell people where they can find you both.
You can find our podcast, The Celebration, wherever you find podcasts. I am on Instagram mostly at, what is it? What is my Instagram handle? It is John_Flynn99. That's me on Instagram.
Why the
And-
99? Did it choose that for
Because
you, or
there's-
did you choose it?
There's so many other John Flynns before me.
There was a Lara Boyle Flynn, wasn't there?
Oh,
Lars
yeah.
Lee Boyle.
Sorry.
Close.
She looked like a Chupa Chup, like a lollipop, didn't she, from memory?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
she was real skinny.
Yeah. I love her.
Tiny.
I love her. And what about you, Eric?
I'm also on Instagram at Eric Bernat, Bernat, and then the Celebration has its own
All right. Instagram.
semi-active Instagram.
Yeah, you might have to get on that. I'm really looking forward to your next episodes, because I think it was August, your last one, or something like that, wasn't it?
For her
What was our
birthday was her last one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Her
Well,
birthday episode.
keep it up, because it is a great show. I hope. Thank you for tolerating an annoying Australian.
Oh, my
Not at
God.
all.
It was a
It's
pleasure.
our pleasure. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, that was unexpected and felt very welcoming. I anytime that we get to talk with somebody about Madonna who also is as impassioned and full of love and
And a little shade.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah. It's good.
I do think that's part of the fun of Madonna, is that as a fan, you do get to roll your eyes at her a lot.
Eric and John, thank you.
Thank
you so much.
It's lovely to meet you, Scott.
Thank you, Tim. You too.
I could see that you were about to attend Darren Hayes' book signing for his memoir, Unlovable, I believe it's called. And I was just really keen to hear all about it. How did it go?
Well, it was really good. Darren speaks really well, and the stories he has to tell are very important, I think.
So it wasn't just a book signing, it was a talk, was it? And where was this? For our international listeners, where did you go?
I think it was called the Union Theatre at Melbourne University in Parkville.
Oh, okay, so you attended the Melbourne launch.
Yes.
Okay, and then he hops up on stage, and does he interact with the audience?
Not so much then, no, and there weren't audience questions, but a moderator, very nice lady whose name I forget, unfortunately, she had the conversation with Darren, and it was, as I say, a very important topic, as he came from a family that had an issue with domestic violence and alcoholism. And I think it's a topic that it is spoken about these days, but certainly when I was a child, you wouldn't talk about it. And I could relate to it too, not so much with my father, but with my stepfather, who fortunately I only had to see on school holidays, but that was enough.
There's a song on the second Savage Garden album called Two. What is it? It's a hotel room and a coffee machine. Gee, it's escaping me. But there's a song on that album that's about, or it hints, I suppose. It feels like it's a fictitious story, but when you actually even study the tense of the song, you can tell that he's talking about his own experience. And I know in his book, because I'm most of the way through it now, he outlines quite a brutal description of his childhood, which I feel like if I met Darren, I'd love to say to him, this might have felt like your secret, but it was so familiar to many of us in Australia in that time period, wasn't it? And you're saying you had a similar experience with a stepfather.
Yes. And it's all to do with alcoholism. Darren actually said that the worst things are not actually in his book. And he also needed help from both his mother and his sister, who is older, because, of course, some of it Darren was too young to know about. But yes, as you say, it's something that so many of us can relate to. I'm not even a big drinker now. It just doesn't appeal to me. I'm a collector and I prefer to spend my money on things for my collection. And booze to me just seems like a waste of money.
Yeah, but it was so prevalent, 70s and 80s, and it was an accepted childhood for many Australians. It really was. And fascinating, again, with Darren talking so much in his book about needing to protect this secret, whereas in lots of little homes all around him, in Brisbane, in Sydney, all across Australia, that generation, because of the generation before, was to a degree violent. Let's just call it what it is, right? Kids were being punished, and it was more than just punishment, though. I mean, it's family violence, as you say. How was Darren when he was on the stage talking about this? Because one thing that I've noticed, Scott, is he's gone from a fella that seemed quite repressed to me during his heyday in interviews, quite manufactured and scripted in his answers. But this book is absolutely warts and all.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And he was very moved at times talking about his childhood. And the lady who was interviewing him had to pass him tissues. So, of course, we found that very moving as well. I did want to say that I could relate to that, although I must admit my stepfather never raised a hand to me. But then again, I wasn't young. I was probably about 14 or 15.
Mm.
And that, of course, does make a difference.
But what was your experience then? If it wasn't physical violence, what was that household like for you?
Well, it was usually when it came around to about 6 or 7 in the evening, Mum would be saying, "Where's Dennis?" Because, of course, he would have finished work but not come home. He's gone to the pub instead. And he would turn up hours later. And I remember one time he'd actually relieved himself. He peed himself.
Yeah.
And you could see it on his trousers. And then he would just get very mouthy, and I would do my best to ignore him. But it's hard when you've got someone right in your face, trying to provoke a response, and I can only assume that was the reason why he did it. I have brought it up with Mum not too long ago, and she would say, "Oh, Dennis, he used to just get silly," and I would have to say, "Mum, no, it was more than that." I was too young to go to their wedding, but my older brother went, and he told me that on her wedding day, Mum had 2 black eyes.
Mm.
So I do know that he did raise a hand to her. I never saw it, though, I must admit. I wasn't around for any of that. But, yeah, it doesn't sound very nice at all.
I think as I'm working my way through this book, and I can't tell you, just like you, Scott, and I can feel it in your words that this really resonated. And boy, is it resonating for me too. It's actually really tough to keep pushing through page by page because it's like, my God, the similarities are unbelievable. I've been wondering as I'm working my way through if international listeners, I wonder, or readers, I should say, if they're feeling the same, because this is so Australian. I'll give you an example. I have lots of people in my family who are in the emergency services back in those days, police, fire, ambulance, all of that, and even in journalism and drinking culture in Australia. And you can remember the commercials, Scott, too,
Yes.
like Foster's and Forex. Like drinking culture, even though people will say it's still a prevalent culture in Australia, nothing like it was in the 70s or 80s. It was the done thing to chug a whole slab of beer, for example. So when these fathers, and it often was fathers, but it was also mothers, when they would come home to the nest, they weren't just a little bit tipsy. They were absolutely out of their goddamn minds. And as I'm reading through Darren's book, that's what hits home when Dad arrives home. Oh my God, it's on for young and old. And it's a very confronting read, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is surprising how much we can all relate to it. But as you say, drinking was just expected, not just accepted, but expected of.
Yeah. One thing that struck me in Darren's book too was this description. First of all, he hasn't, where I'm up to, he hasn't given a physical description of his dad yet, but he does describe the overpowering odor of his father, the alcohol, the sweat, the hardworking, because this was a man who would go out to work and work hard. But he quite a few times so far where I am in the book, he describes that scent or odor of his father. And it just makes me think, like, the visual for me is leathery Australian skin in the sun too much, sweaty, premature aging. I don't know if he goes on to describe. I'll keep reading, but it's just, again, I'm painting that picture because it's so familiar to me.
Yeah, I can relate to that too. Absolutely, it is a particular scent, as you say.
It's not just a few orange juice and vodkas down the pub. It's drinking all day and slabs of beer, and then the harder liquor usually comes out. He also talks, Scott, in the book at length about, I suppose, where I'm up to again, the seedlings of his wrestle with his sexuality. And in the context that he has given us so beautifully, it makes perfect sense why he had struggles with his sexuality, because on every level, from even his mother and his sister to a degree, certainly his sort of masculine older brother, and then of course his father, but then messages in society, at school, he had a horrible school experience. No wonder he was so determined to keep his sexuality private. Did he talk about that in his talk?
Yeah, he did. It was touched on, and I gather that a lot of it came from the record company.
Oh, see, I'm not up to that part of the book yet, but I basically, I've got all the foundations about why he would have problems with it as well. Everything down to when his parents described to him how babies were made, and it was just so conservative and so traditional, and so scant on detail, to say the least. Even
Yes.
things like that contributed. So he goes on to talk about his record label, does he?
I'm not up to that in the book yet either, but certainly at this event, he did mention that. And let me think. I think it was the video clip for Kath and Kel's favourite, Insatiable.
Love that song.
Yeah, I do too. It's amazing. The first video they filmed, the record company wouldn't accept it. It was just too gay.
I recall it. It was something to do with his hair or something.
No, it was even more than that, I believe.
Right.
And from what I understand, this video clip, the original one, has never seen the light of day.
Wow. And that was after he, I would have thought by that stage in his career he'd have some creative control because he'd been in Savage Garden. This was his first solo project from memory. I would have thought he'd have control, but he clearly didn't.
No. The record company pulls the strings. He spoke about the execs all wearing terrible, ill-fitting suits, much like the orange one who's just going to be president again.
Oh, he doesn't like Trump, does he, our Darren?
No, I don't either. I think he's a complete buffoon and fool.
Did he have a rant about Trump though at the talk?
It did come up. Yes.
I'm not surprised.
He was talking about the record company execs and basically that they sound like Trumps.
This isn't Madonna, and I love listening to Time to Talk.
Tell me about what was his presence like? What's Darren? What was it like to be in his presence?
He is so warm, so lovely, so open. We were told, because when we arrived at the event, we were each given a copy of the book that Darren had signed in advance.
Lovely.
Yeah, it was great, but it also meant at the end of the talk, if we had other places to be, dinner reservations, things like that. Well, of course, we had a signed copy of the book already, but if we didn't have plans, we could have the book personalised.
Oh, so what did you opt to do?
Oh, I opted to stay, but we were told by one of the curators of the event that you can't stop, have a conversation, have photos taken, etc., etc. It really has to be, Darren, I love you. Thank you. Bye.
And I understand that because the queues have, I assume, well, I've seen queues on Instagram and they're long. Was your queue particularly long?
It was a little bit, but apparently in Sydney it was about 3 hours.
Amazing, right?
And that's very long. At our event in Melbourne, the way they did it is they asked one row at a time. So we were asked to stay in our seats and they'd start at the front and one row at a time would join the queue. We weren't really waiting that long, maybe 45 minutes or an hour, I'm not sure. And I did say something, but I did keep in mind that, yes, we couldn't have a conversation, which makes sense.
Go on then, share with us.
I said to Darren, hello, Darren. And I also said, thank you for giving us hope.
Yeah.
And he seemed really touched by that.
Do you know, Scott, again, as someone who's making my way through the books, that's very present in my mind. I feel like this was a huge step for him. Look, I'm going to be perfectly honest. As I'm making my way through this book, I'm feeling like this is not someone who has made peace at all, not even slightly. So I'm assuming as I get further into it, I'm going to find that the writing of this book is actually part of the process, the therapy, whatever you want to call it for him. I assume he'll talk about that at some stage, because so far this is a man who hasn't made peace. The words I'm talking about, the construction of the words tell me there are so many clues that he hates his father, hates. And it's still there, it's raw, it's present, it's like a raw end, and he still hates and resents some of the people from his childhood. He still knows the names of his bullies. I'm fascinated by the vivid description of the people in his early childhood and especially his teen years who betrayed him or bullied him. He names them, but they might be fake names for all I know.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say, actually. He did say when he was writing the book, which came about from an article that had a photograph of him as a 10-year-old, I think. And it was from that Penguin contacted him and asked him to write a autobiography. So that's how it happened. But he did say as he was writing it, all the old emotions would come out and he'd cry, etc. So I think writing the book would be a step in doing that.
Oh, yeah. And for those listening who are thinking of reading the book or curious about the book purely because of Savage Garden and what happened there, and I must admit, my hands up, that was the main reason that I wanted to get the book. But you find yourself, I feel like I'm barely scratching the surface, and it's very chronological. He's starting in his early childhood. It flips a little bit to, the Savage Garden days every now and then, but it's mainly very chronological. It's quite powerful. And the other thing, Scott, that is coming through in spades is how much he adores his mother, but more importantly, it's clear why. She is, I assume she's still alive. She's beautiful. I'll give you an example. He tells this story about, it's not a struggle at that stage, but as a boy, he wants to attend, I think it's Book Week, or there's a costume, a dress up. He wants to go as Wonder Woman. And the mother just so beautifully handles it. She basically puts him in boys' clothes, but paints stars on the shorts. And she just does it so gently and beautifully. And I'm as much in love with Darren's mother so far as he clearly is.
Yeah, absolutely. He did say that this autobiography is not going to be a Hollywood gossip type of book.
It's a very Australian story. And that's why as I'm making my way through it, I keep thinking, I wonder what international readers will make of this, because it's just bursting off the page with Australianisms, even the places, the record shops, the hot hotels and caravan parks and the old pools and the chemical smells, and everything he describes is just so Australian.
I can relate to all of that.
I bet you can, Scott. That's what we all grew up in, mate. That's what we all grew up in.
It reminds me of the Stephen Elliott film Swinging Safari.
Yes.
Because that has 1970s childhood to a T.
Absolutely. Yeah. But this is unlike Swinging Safari. This is the seedy what happens behind closed doors, essentially.
I can relate to that too, because back in those days, no one would have an argument in public. You'd always say, we'll talk about this when we get home.
Yes.
And I kind of miss those days, actually, in a way, when you catch a train and people are having discussions with other people on the telephone. And
it's so true, isn't it? That having the veneer of a normal family life was extremely important, and we were good at cultivating it, because you wouldn't have the fight on the front lawn, and you'd be, if you were playing under the sprinklers, it looked like you're all happy families. But shut those doors, and if there's a drunk in the family, and let's just be honest, that's what's going on here in the book, and by the sound of it in both of our lives, misery.
Yes.
But the part, sorry to interrupt, Scott, but the part that interests me is some people who have that Australian experience of having someone who's a drunk in the family. We'll talk about a sort of a bi relationship with that person. Like, I really liked that person when they weren't drinking, whether it's a mother or a father or even an older sibling or an uncle or an auntie who lives in the home, but they hate them when they're drinking. With Darren, it's so palpable that he just hates his dad because of the way dad treats his mum primarily.
I couldn't imagine it being any other way, honestly. Well, I do hope that this book and writing it does allow him to hopefully forgive his father.
I'm dying to skip forward and finding out what happens there. I don't know. Again, I don't know much about Darren's life, but I'm wondering if the dad. I'm getting the strong sense dad's not in his life anymore. Whether that's through passing or estrangement, I'm not sure, but it's coming through very strongly that dad's not part of his life.
Yeah, I believe he's dead, but
right.
That forgiveness, although you might think, I can't possibly forgive them, but it's very important that you try, not for their sake, but for your own sake.
Such a small detail too, Scott, and you can tell I'm a pop culture nerd, but in the song Affirmation, he talks, there's a line, I believe our parents did the best job they knew how to do, or something similar to that. And now that I'm making my way through this book, I'm like, wow, that line must have been hard for him to write. I mean, he does acknowledge that his dad would have had an equally violent upbringing himself, and so he recognizes that cycle, but he definitely isn't forgiving it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think of one of his solo songs, Crush, 1980 Me.
How good is that?
And it's terrific. But if it was the kind of event that had a question and answer, I would have submitted that question or a question about that song, because it's such a happy song, but he can't have been very happy in the 1980s. And all of those things that he talks about in the song, they must surely have connotations with what he was going through with his father. So.
Oh, yeah, look, I'm looking at his whole back catalogue in a brand new light as I'm making my way through this book. He talks a lot in the book too, Scott, about body image. He talks about wanting to, having thoughts of suicide and wanting to leave behind a beautiful corpse. He talks about that in some length, actually, and body image is really important to Darren, clearly. Did he talk about that in his talk?
No, not so much, but we have to remember that in the 1980s it was the rise of the male supermodel. So, yes, it's probably around then that we were inundated with these images of what we're supposed to look like.
Yeah. He's going off to his school formal, which is, what do they call that in the United States for our States listeners?
A homecoming?
Like a homecoming, yeah. There's a word they call it, yeah, like a homecoming, but it's basically your end of high school graduation. And yeah, he's been growing his hair, especially for the event, longer, and his dad forces him to get it cropped before he goes off to the event. So his dad had a lot of, how many of our pop stars, Janet Jackson comes to mind. It's about control, right? And pop star is it's actually a form of dissociation of creating yourself a new identity, one where you'll have adulation and praise, almost where you're allowed to erase and start all over again and be fabulous as you possibly can. Michael Jackson was a big influence on his life too. Did he talk about Michael?
He did mention the name, yeah, but not in a great deal of detail.
Hey, Time to Talk family, this is Tim Power, host of the podcast where amateurs talk about icons. To keep our show commercial free, we rely on your support. Many of you have chucked in just a couple of bucks, or sometimes more, which lets Time to Talk Australia pay its way. There's no obligation, of course. Keep listening to us no matter what. Liking and sharing our content is also a huge help. But if you do hear something that you like and you think you can support the show by throwing in a couple of bucks, head to patreon.com/Time to Talk Australia. The link is in the description of this podcast.
Hi, Tim and Time to Talk listeners. This is Danny from Melbourne. And I'd just like to say your latest podcast made me very angry.
And as always, we want your voice memos. If you've heard something that you agree with, or possibly you're outraged, and let's be fair, many of you listen simply to be outraged, then take out your phone and record a voice memo. Cap it at around the 2-minute mark and then send it to me. I listen to all the voice memos that come through, and occasionally we include them in the show. Our email is timetotalkaustralia@outlook.com. Thanks for sharing, rating, contributing and donating to this very little podcast from Down Under. I genuinely love our little Time to Talk family because lovers of pop are an endangered species. So why don't we go extinct together?
So that's all I have to say. Get off the airwaves. You're such an amateur.
Darren paints a really, I would call it brutal. He hasn't used the word, but he had a brutal experience at high school. He was just an outcast until he found music and musical theatre. He didn't really have an outlet. Did you have a tough time at high school as well, Scott?
Yeah, I did, because I couldn't have been anyone but myself.
Yeah.
And I struggled every time that I was encouraged to fit in. Of course, I'm 53 now, and at age 46, 7 years ago, I was diagnosed on the autism spectrum, and I think that explains a lot.
When you had that diagnosis at age 46, did you look back through the whole sort of conveyor belt of your life before that and go, oh, so much makes sense now?
Yeah, absolutely. I can remember going to a red light disco.
Do you mean a blue light disco?
Oh, yes, a blue. Yeah, definitely not a red light.
I'm not making fun of you, Scott. It's just the red light discos probably came later in your life.
It sounded like a real Freudian slip, didn't it?
It did.
But maybe it was in a way, because at this blue light disco, everyone coupled up and there wasn't a seat to be found if you wanted to sit down because they were all taken. And I just thought, what am I doing here? I don't fit in here at all. Although I heard some music that I quite liked, but with everything else, no, I did not fit in. And I never went to another one, red or blue.
But isn't it interesting? I sometimes wonder when you talk to people like you and listen to Darren talk about his life, it's like, I wonder if anyone felt like they had a normal teenage childhood. We're all going through a lot at that time, but yeah. Sometimes it feels like everyone else did fit in, but then you want to go back in time and wonder, did anyone really feel like they were fitting in? It always looked that way to me. I would go to blue light discos as well, and everyone looked like they were there having a great time and having their little teenage dramas, but I was always on the outskirts, and it sounds to me like you might have been a little bit the same.
Yeah, I think you're right, and yes, there's degrees, of course.
Yes.
Certainly with the autistic people amongst us, yes, we probably have it harder.
Scott, it's interesting listening to you too, because ASD or autism more broadly was barely known when you were at school.
Yeah, exactly. I think it explains why my diagnosis happened so late. When I was diagnosed, a psychiatrist wanted to speak to both my parents.
Even at the age of 46?
Yeah. He wanted to know what I was like as a child.
Oh, I wanted to dig into your childhood, right.
From that perspective. But he asked my mother if I'd been taken to a paediatrician. And she said no, and she was quite taken aback by that thought. But
back in those days, you'd only take if your child was murdering animals, maybe at that point. But besides that, no, we didn't go to paediatricians.
No, it was a different world. I think there were some doctors who specialised in that field, but by and large, it was just a big unknown.
What made you start investigating it so late in life? Why was it important to do that?
I had a bit of a nervous breakdown. I was fired from a job, and that's how it happened.
Right.
Before that, I was dealing with anxiety and depression, so I was already in that field, visiting specialists of that type. The weird thing about depression, especially because I know this happened with me, when other people talk about it, I said, "What do you mean you're depressed?" I had no idea. You don't really understand, I think, until it happens to you. Of course, you can use empathy and you can be supportive, but actually understanding what it's like, it's a strange
Well, a
concept.
lot of people try to equate it to sadness, and I'm going to share a bit of myself. Depression has always been part of my experience, and by the way, it's also in Darren's book, so it's very relevant to this conversation. He goes into quite some detail about recognizing the first time he knew he had depression, and it's not just sadness, which is not. It's more than that. It's unexplainable. It can happen when everything is going well in your life, as well as when everything isn't going well in your life. And it's so chronic, and it manifests in such a physical way as well as an emotional way. I still struggle to find the words, but it's sad is when something sad happens. That's a normal human response. But depression is a whole different thing altogether. And if you've lived it, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I describe it as not feeling sad, but feeling numb.
Yeah.
It has happened to me where I'll be out in public and I'll be walking along a street, and I would think, if I was to step out onto the road now and get hit by a bus, I wouldn't care. And it really came to a crisis point one day when I was waiting for a train at the train station, and I had a sudden compulsion to jump in front of the train. And I somehow made myself leave the train station and go to the police station instead.
Wow. And that compulsion to do that, in some ways, was it because you wanted to feel something rather than just numb?
Yeah, it probably is that. It happened to me once again after that, where I was in a hot air balloon. I just say to my friend next to me, I have this compulsion to jump out.
Wow.
And it wasn't as if I wanted to end my life. That wasn't the case. But really, I think I was just afraid that I was going to do it and not be able to stop myself. The mind is a very strange thing.
Isn't it, Scott? Isn't it a bastard of a thing, the mind?
Yeah.
If only we could work it out, because I know I'm talking to a kindred spirit here. I know I'm talking to someone who's thought, I wish I could get in there with my fingers and just put the wires back together in a certain different way and things might be different. Was there any relief in you getting that diagnosis? I mean, it's been about 7 years or so now. Is there relief in knowing that you are on the ASD spectrum?
Yeah, absolutely. The terminology, though, does cause problems, because I've had family members say, "Oh, we're all on the spectrum."
Oh,
no,
God, don't you hate that?
Yes.
Thanks,
yes.
Auntie Mary. You know everything about autism.
or the other one is, "Oh, we're all a little bit autistic." No, you're not. But it's because of that term, spectrum,
Yeah.
that they think that it's from only a little bit autistic to very autistic. And that's not it at all. It just means that you're not going to be the same as other people who have autism. Your individual issues are going to be different. What helps, certainly with depression and anxiety, is the right medication and having the right therapist. There will be trial and error. You're not going to get, or you might not get the right person and the right drugs at the very beginning, but understand, this isn't working for me. Say something. Don't just just keep going, because if it's not working, there's a reason for that. You don't have to keep taking that medication if it doesn't feel right. There could be another one that's going to work better for you.
And even when you find that beautiful combination too, it's really helpful if you are aware that there will come points where you need to reconfigure again, and that's okay. And you might feel unsafe for a time, but it's okay, because it's actually the normal part of the journey to have to reconfigure as you walk your way through life. It's interesting too about that what you said about people's perceptions of autism too, because it's becoming quite a popular phrase now to go, I'm a bit aspy. It's like I hear that quite a lot, and like you say, it really diminishes the real meaning.
Yeah. As I say, I understand why people do it.
Yeah,
and that's nice, but the thing is, it does make light of what we've gone through. And my brother is actually doing something in that field at the moment, and he said he was told that you are not to say autistic person, you've got to say a person who has autism. And I said, well, I don't do that. I don't insist on that. I say I am an autistic person, because it is integral to who I am.
Yeah. Well, look, and I'd respect that you elect to do that. Of course I would. But I really do, and I hate to sound even remotely woke, but I really do think it is important to, when we're talking in general terms. So if we're talking about Scott, and Scott wants to be referred to as an autistic person, cool, thumbs up to that. But when we're talking generally about disabilities or medical issues, it's really important to be person focused. So you should say a person with disability, for example. I think it's important.
Yeah, it is absolutely. But what's important, I think, is to just ask.
True. Yeah.
And that way the person can decide.
And sometimes you don't have to ask, Scott. Sometimes you just listen carefully and you see what the person refers to themselves at, and you can pick up a clue. But like you say, or if all else fails, ask, right?
I'm one of these people that, and I didn't know this, but apparently I don't need to tell people that I'm autistic. And it's quite obvious. When I was on Hard Quiz.
You were on Hard Quiz?
I was on Hard Quiz.
What was your special topic?
Agatha Christie.
Yay!
And it was the best. It was the best experience. I just loved it so much. I love the show. It's so much fun. One of the producers rang me beforehand and asked me how would I be if Tom was to be nasty to me. And I said, well, no matter what he says, I'm going to have to agree with him. So that didn't bother me at all.
And I can tell he's a kind person anyway. So when somebody kind is having a joke, it doesn't matter, does it?
No, it doesn't. But the funny thing is, I was reading some things on Twitter after it aired, and there were people who recognized that I was on the autism spectrum without me even having to say so.
Really? And that surprises you?
Well, I think it did at the time, but now I think it makes a lot of sense, because I don't conform in any way. I hate fashion. I like clothes, but I hate following fashion. To me, that just seems stupid.
But you have your own sense of fashion. If I'm not mistaken, I think I saw photos of you, maybe even at the Darren event, maybe. But if not, then somewhere else. And you have your own sense of fashion, our Scott, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
How would you describe it?
Well, life is too short to be boring. That's my opinion.
Good on you. I think you like a hat, don't you?
I do, yeah. I like a hat. I've got a lovely boater, which is great for this warm weather we're having. Because of course we have to be mindful of the sun, and it feels like summer has come early in some ways. I love a cravat. I love a waistcoat.
Who was that? It was Matt Preston who liked a cravat too, wasn't it?
Yes. I don't dress to be like him. I'm like me, but we both happen to like cravats. I like the Trinity knot when you're wearing a normal tie.
Yes.
All of these things, they're just quirky and interesting. And like I say, life's too short to be boring.
Yeah, you don't want to be boring, Scott. You're certainly not that. And in fact, I just am adoring your energy, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. We've never spoken before, but I just think you sound delightful.
Yeah, it annoys me when people dress to fit in. One of the things that I really hate at the moment is people wearing brown shoes.
Oh, it's a new thing, isn't it? Why are they doing that?
I don't understand.
Pointy brown shoes.
If you're wearing tweed and you happen to be in the country, that's fine. But the rule has always been no brown in town. And the thing is, it sticks out so much. Someone can be wearing a beautiful suit that's well tailored, that's fitted, it's got a beautiful colour or check pattern or whatever the case may be. And then they've got brown shoes and it just doesn't fit in. It doesn't match what they're wearing. I just don't understand it. I do have brown shoes, but as I say, I wear them with tweed and no brown in town.
Well, watch this segue, Scott. What was Darren wearing at the event? Please tell me it wasn't brown shoes.
No,
sneakers, I bet.
I think he did have sneakers on, so
I
would have taken exception to that as well. But then again, they're comfortable, and fashion should be comfortable. It's not usually, but his suit was beautiful. It was tailored. It fit well, and he did not look in any way like Donald Trump.
I think for Darren, and for those of you who don't know, you go back and read some of Darren's tweets. I think it would be the ultimate insult, more than anything else. And there's a lot you could say to hurt more Darren's feelings, but I think one of the worst ones would be like, you're dressing like the Don.
Yeah, I don't understand it. If he had no money, you could understand, okay, he's wearing a suit from community welfare shop, as we say here. Perhaps then you could understand, but what is happening with his hair? What is happening?
You really don't like this man, do you?
No, but everything seems to be wrong. The orange fake tan and the white around his eyes. What's that about? The suits that don't fit. I'm not sure if there's anything wrong with his shoes. The ties that are so long that go well past his belt. I just don't understand. Of course, it's evidence of the fact that money can't buy taste.
No. Well, we need to get you over to the States, Scott. You can get him in a cravat.
No, I'm not going to the States again. It's the country that I've been to most often, but I'm not going again until they do something about their gun laws. And
I can't blame you.
In other words, I'm never going back.
No, because that's not going to happen, is it?
No, it isn't. One other thing I just wanted to mention quickly when we're talking about mental health, what I say to people all the time is there is no shame in asking for help.
Yeah, there's a lot of people undiagnosed wrestling with whatever it is they're going through. And like you say, Scott, the best advice is there are places you can turn for help. There are places dedicated to connecting you to help as well.
Yes.
And one of those would be Lifeline, of course.
Well, I think too many of us were brought up to be strong and like I said before, don't air your dirty laundry in public. Wait until you get home. We'll talk about it then. But the thing is, if you go on too long thinking I should be strong enough to deal with this, all it takes is for something to snap and then something happens and you can't take it back.
So for those of you who do want to reach out for help, if you're in Australia, 13 11 14, that's the number for Lifeline. Scott, help us round this out. You said to Darren, thanks for giving people hope, right?
Yes.
Finish this off for us. What did you mean by that, which might encourage some people to go and read his book?
Well, as you say, the book is confronting. It's raw and it's honest and it's true. But he is so well put together, judging by the event, in order to let things go. I mean, it's like what people say to you all the time. They say, just get over it. And the thing is, they're right, but it's finding the way to get over it, which is the hard part.
When people, that's a loaded message. Get over it usually means forget about it. But as Darren paints in his book, or I think he's about to anyway, and as the message you're trying to give as well, is therapeutically try to understand and contextualize what you've been through. That's getting over it in the most therapeutic way possible, right?
It is, but it's funny because when you do feel better about these things, and then sometimes you think about it and say, gosh, that's all I had to do.
Yeah. Well, Scott, you're quite inspirational for someone who's obviously been through a lot, and now I understand why Darren and his story stood out to you, and I understand why you wanted to go and be in his presence and hear from him directly. Because anyone listening, if you're thinking of picking up this book, and I've said it before and I'm going to repeat it again, to read about the Savage Garden years, well, you're in for a lot more than that. Like I say, I haven't even begun that part, and I've been into this book for quite some time now, and we're not even up to the Savage Garden. Although, excitingly, Scott, he's about to perform at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre, where he was first initiated into the world of Michael Jackson. So it's quite an amazing part of the book where, you know, this little boy who looked up to his idol is now going to be on the same stage. It's quite an incredible journey.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. What he said in his talk is, he said that's why he became a pop star. This horrible trauma that he had as a child, he decided, well, I'm going to be a pop star because they don't have lives like that. And he did. And that's just amazing.
He did. Well, and he had the talent too, you know. But some people might have the dream, but they wouldn't be able to get there. But Darren, I mean, his voice is sublime.
Absolutely. When I told him about thank you for giving us hope, he said, that's my mother. And she just sounds like an amazing person.
And I just remember the name of that song, Two Beds and a Coffee Machine. Yeah. Thank you, Brain, for remembering that. Oh, it was when I was talking about how wonderful his voice was, and all of a sudden I could hear him singing the lyrics to that. Hey, Scott, I hope you've enjoyed being in the fortress of pop culture for the first time.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Pop culture. I love it. It's weird, though, when I talk to people about my particular obsession, which it is. It's not an interest. It's an obsession. Young people especially, they say, who's that? Or is that an actor, an actress? And I have to say, no, she's just the best-selling author of all time, only outsold by the Bible. Yeah.
You're talking, of course, about Agatha Christie. Yeah, look, if a young person said that to me, I'd pick them up by the ears and then I'd swing them around and around like out of that movie, Matilda.
Yes, and then let go so that they fly into the next paddock. Even on Gogglebox, now let me see. It's the young girl. She's just had a baby, and her mother, and it used to be her grandmother as well. But I take it her grandmother's not with us anymore. But the girl, she said, "Who's Agatha Christie?" And her mother said, "I'm disowning you." But it's so true.
Yes, I agree with her method. I agree with her strategy. Scott, thank you for being here and giving us a bit of a glimpse into what it was like to spend some time with Darren Hayes. I really appreciate it.
Amazing, amazing. That's all I can say. He's truly inspirational.
Whenever I listen to Tim and his panel of guests, my toes begin to curl, and I feel just the right amount of tingling all over my aching body. Now, let's get back to the show.
Lily, help me out with this one. Fish nets, satin sheets, garter belt, raw meat? Raw meat? What's she doing with Devon in the bedroom that I don't know about?
Sounds like bareback.
Or baloney, as you call it over there. Oh. Well, you may not have heard of Artie Lederman, but you've no doubt listened to at least a few of the many tracks he stole from Madonna before selling them off at around $1,000 a piece. Well before Rebel Heart's planned release in 2015, there was an initial trickle and then a deluge of leaks filtered online, and boy was Madonna furious. Not only had her work been stolen, but probably most stinging of all for this renowned perfectionist, the work that was spreading illegally around the world wasn't even finished. In total, 15 demo tracks were leaked from Rebel Heart, as well as artwork. Fans like me couldn't resist, and we spent many weeks absorbing Madonna's incomplete Rebel Heart product. And to this day, I still can't help comparing the demos with the official versions. It turns out the Israeli hacker responsible was a lonely, aspiring musician who felt he was wasting his life away when he appeared on a talent show called A Star Is Born some years before. He was also found to be responsible for leaking Give Me All Your Lovin' years earlier, and he was chucked in prison for 14 months. But as always, it was Madonna who received the greatest backlash. She described the hack as artistic rape and terrorism. The comparison's not going down well with victims of sexual assault or in light of Sydney, Australia's terrorism incident, which had occurred not long before. It's quite a backstory, but what else would you expect from Madonna? The only difference here is that the chaos surrounding her new work was not orchestrated or controlled by herself. And that's the part that probably made her angriest of all. Taking us through Madonna's 13th studio album, Lily, Megs, Rocco, welcome, my friends.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Great to have you all on board. Now, it's a good 5 years ago now, Lily, so with the benefit of hindsight, take us through what are your impressions and your memories of Rebel Heart?
Well, the most prominent memory for me, because I wasn't a fan of Madonna at the time, was the public response to the Bitch I'm Madonna music video, because I remember that got a lot of backlash. Well, my impression of the album, especially looking back on it, comparing to her other works, is that while it may be called Rebel Heart, I feel it lacks heart.
Wow. Strong fighting words. I'm looking forward, Lily, to finding out exactly how you arrived at that conclusion. Megs, memories, highlights, low points of the Rebel Heart era?
Yeah, I would just say that it's a solid album. You know, it's an enjoyable album, but it's a little bit hit and miss, I guess. Like a few of the songs I don't even bother listening to on a regular basis, even though the rest I do. So I would just say that it's a fine album, and it had a nice story thread throughout it. But really, it was a bit hit and miss for me.
Rocco, it's Rebel Heart, so it's meant to be Madonna's rebel side, and also with a good drop, a decent drop of heart involved. Did she hit the mark with what she was trying to achieve?
Yeah, definitely. I actually think it's interesting that she initially wanted to have a two-sided record, or I guess two separate installments, one being the rebellious side and then the other being all the more introspective romantic songs. But I actually like how she decided to put them all on one album, because within one being is all of those different elements. So I think it actually makes it more personal.
And from what I understand, Madonna wanted to go back to basics with Rebel Heart. She wanted to pull out the guitar. She wanted songs that could stand alone without production value. But I believe that she wanted this album to be romantic to an extent. And I actually do think that comes through this album.
Yeah, can I also add that I think when the demos came out, it just heightened my excitement about the album. Like, we got to listen to them raw and unedited and unpolished and everything, and that got me really excited for the actual album.
Rocco, were you listening to the demos as well?
Yeah, I was. This was not like previous leaks where, they're demos from albums that she already got a chance to put out as she intended the audience to hear them. I'm not entirely convinced that they were going to hurt the record in terms of sales because, the hardcore fans are the only ones who are going to be seeking out these leaks and they're going to buy the album regardless. But yeah, I did. And I thought it was interesting that we unintentionally, of course, sort of were able to witness the creative evolution of these songs almost in real time before the album even came out.
I have to admit that's exactly how I felt at the time. I was like, oh, so this is what they sound like before they get into the final edits, I suppose, because there's so many bells and whistles on all of these tracks, as we all know now, because we've heard the demos, which were so stripped back and raw. But sometimes I wonder, I don't think the fans care as much as Madonna. I think we're eager beavers. I was so excited. It's been so long since I'd heard new Madonna music. There was no way I wasn't going to look it up. Should we be looking it up, or should we be supporting her when she says in interviews, I don't know why, if you're real fans, you'd leak it. I don't know why you'd listen to it. Let me show you the work that I want to show you.
When it comes to the leaks, I can see where Madonna is coming from, where she called it artistic rape of sorts. I wouldn't probably have said those things, but I can see how leaking, like the act of leaking the music, is essentially stealing. So I can understand why that would be so aggravating to her. But I think to argue that once the music's leaked, you shouldn't listen to it, or you're not a true fan if you listen to the leaks and not wait for the actual release, I think that's a bit demanding and controlling in some ways, because
Madonna all over,
that's just
really?
me, though.
Well, and also she did an interview around the time that the album came out, and she was sitting in a room and she was surrounded by paintings by Andy Warhol and Keith Haring, and she was asked about the leaks, and she made the comparison. She said, imagine if one of the paintings that are in this room right now, before the artist was finished painting it, someone broke into their studio, stole it, made copies of it, and posted it all around the city. That would be kind of embarrassing for the artist because that wasn't the statement they were trying to make. And, I actually liked that particular quote because I think it probably helped people understand more her perspective.
I think that perfectly explains it on her end.
There were a lot of tracks, though, that didn't end up on the album that were leaked as well, that we got to hear in demo form, and some of them were pretty ordinary, I have to say. So it's not only about the unfinished versions of songs, it was also about getting to hear things that we probably weren't going to get to hear at all.
A bit like with Michael Jackson's Escape album. I don't know how happy he would have been when all those songs were released after his death. So probably Madonna would have felt, equally bad about that.
Absolutely. Today we're going to be talking track by track of the Rebel Heart album, but before we do, the packaging. I'm curious to know, what did you all make of the era and the artwork that goes around it? Because it's almost as profound as the work itself. The cover art, the photo shoots, the images that she puts out, the clothing she wears for interviews and promotion. Was the Rebel Heart era theme on spot?
I will argue, at least, that some of her most beautiful photography moments are during this era. I think that, like, those photos of her in that red sweater for the cover of Rebel Heart on some of the editions, she looks gorgeous on those covers.
Yeah.
But I think
takes it back to the 80s. I reckon that short platinum blonde hair, it reminds me of early Madonna work a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And then I think there's some fun images with her in, like, that chainmail nun outfit, or her with the sword. I think those are really interesting and good quality photos. But I think when it comes to the overall promotion of the album, it could have been better. I don't think it was the worst when it comes to the visuals.
I really liked the cover, particularly the deluxe cover. She was asked actually on a show, I forget which show it was, but she was asked, what does this symbolize? And she said that the ropes were kind of meant to represent, the kind of, I'm paraphrasing here, but she said something like, it represents the restrictions or censorship that people sometimes put on artists, and I liked that symbolism. I thought it worked. I'm not entirely fond of having like 2 or 3 different album covers. I get that, they're different versions, but I like the idea of having one cover that becomes like an iconic image for an album. But the one thing that bothered me about the packaging, and the only complaint I had, wasn't really with the photography. It was more with the fact that the production and songwriting credits were not in the booklet. And that, I at the time, I thought that was just because of the leaks and they wanted to rush the album out and they didn't have time to print them. But in Madam X, they also didn't print them in most of the booklets either. So I don't know why that is. To me, they feel like they should be there.
I know fans like a complete piece of work, and I think the other point there is credit where credit's due, right? We should be able to see all the people that were involved in the making of this. It's interesting you talk about the cover art and what it represented. It obviously created memes, which was a great thing for her at the time for the promotion of this album. On social media, there were many hilarious memes, some controversial ones as well, which she reposted and got criticised for, of course, accused of racism in some cases, I think with Nelson Mandela, for example. But it's a theme she's carried through to Madam X as well, this idea of being chained as an artist. Even the cover of Madam X would be a little bit along a similar vein. And also the fact that she started this, I don't know if we could call it a habit as such, but on Rebel Heart she started deliberately altering her voice to represent different ideas as well. I think it's iconic where she's deliberately boasting a lisp, and then she's done the same in some tracks on Madam X as well. So she's really clinging to this theme at the moment of the chained and restrained artist.
Yeah, she actually, I think one of the tracks you're talking about, and we'll get into that later, but I think she was wearing her grills when she was recording some of the vocals.
Let's talk about the writing and the recording of this. Do any of you have any knowledge around this? This is never my strong point, I have to admit. But who did she involve and include in the creation of Rebel Heart?
Well, I know originally it was a lot of Avicii.
She started working with Avicii, she says, as a songwriter. I don't know if she intended to go his route musically, but I think he had opened for her. Actually, he opened for her on the MDNA tour, the date that I saw at Yankee Stadium in New York. And I think she really liked his songwriting process. And so they wrote a lot of songs together, but I think that musically she knew she wanted to go in a different direction. She worked with people like Diplo. She worked with Kanye towards the end of the album. Kanye had said to her, let me do for you what Rick Rubin did with my album, which was basically taking all the stuff he thought he already had finished and just reworking it completely. So he's the one that changed up Illuminati and Wash All Over Me and a few others I can't remember. But she likened it to like a subway ride where there were constantly people going in and out.
And she found it a little frustrating too, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. I think that's probably one of the reasons that with Madam X, she was in one place. She was in Lisbon. She was just working with Mirwais and, maybe like 1 or 2 other people. And she was like set up shop basically in one place and did it differently. I don't know if she's ever said that, but I have a feeling that she knew, okay, with the next project, I want to really do things differently,
Let's start looking at this album track by track. The opening track, single number 1, Living for Love. What do we all make when we first heard this and saw the video clip for the first time?
As a single, I think that's a great choice for a single because it's so anthemic and powerful. I do think the lead single should have been the title track, but I think if it could have been another song, I think that Living for Love was the best choice.
Wow, you think Rebel Heart should have been the title track of the opening single?
I think going back to the demos, I think the demo version of Rebel Heart should have been the lead single to the album. I think it would have been a much better launch because I think that song is
fairly anthemic and positive and uplifting. Megs, what do you think about the opening single? Was it the right choice?
I might be a bit alone. Like, I'm not a big fan of the song personally. I don't find it extremely enjoyable. But I think it's a good song for performances, and it's a good song for a video clip because it's just so loud, and it does represent the theme of the album pretty well.
I always find it hard with Madonna's opening singles because I don't know about you, Rocco, as a long-term fan though, the expectations on the new music are enormous. And also because it's Madonna, that she's going to go in some direction that you probably didn't expect, or it's going to be iconic or anthemic in some way. And when this came out, even though I do love the song now, it wasn't what I expected. But then when I look back over my history, I'm always feeling that way about the opening track because I think I just I have such high expectations. I don't know what I'm expecting, some sort of once in a lifetime moment every time, which is not possible. But I'm a bit like you, Megs. I'm not a huge fan of the song. I love some of the remixes of it. I grew to love it a lot more once I saw the live performances, aside from the one at the Brit Awards, which we're going to talk about. And I was really disappointed, though, I have to say, with the video clip. I just couldn't. I loved what they were trying to achieve. I loved the idea of it, but the colouring and the final mixing of it, I don't know what it is. It feels like an error, actually, to me. I know it's meant to be deliberate, but for me, when I watch it on no matter how good the TV is or the quality of the device, it's blurry and the blacks aren't black and the reds aren't properly red. I hate it, if I'm going to be honest. It bothers me.
The sound effects I thought were a bit unbalanced, like they were sort of dominating the actual music in some parts, and I just didn't think they fit in very nicely.
I really, really do admire, though, how for the first time in 10 years, she decides to make the lead single a song where it's just her and not a featured younger artist. There could have been several different choices for lead singles, but I really do like the background vocals. It's not Alicia Keys. I thought it was because she's one of the co-writers on the song, but that during the first verse, that woman who's singing background, it's a little part, but it just adds so much to the song. The little like comments and like accents sort of on Madonna's lead vocals, and the Offer Nassim, I hope I'm saying that right, but his remix, which they incorporated into the live performances, that intro where she's walking onto the stage. I absolutely loved that intro. That gave me chills when I first saw it. It was so epic.
We've got to talk about the Grammy performance and the Brit performance. I mean, it's fantastically choreographed. I was so excited to see all singing, all dancing Madonna back. And as Rocco says, it was her and her alone, not Justin Timberlake or Nicki Minaj or Maluma in the later life. This time it was just an opening single, just her relying on herself. It was a little bit like a prayer-ish, and then she goes on to do like these epic, very intricate Madonna-esque, well, they're not Madonna-esque, are they? They are Madonna personified performances of the opening track. Fantastic. But what a shame with the Brits.
Yeah, that we hated watching that bit where she fell over, and she said she got whiplash after it on that interview show, and it just makes my heart break because it's such a good performance, and she put so much effort into it, and just to have that little error happen, she got pulled back by her cape, and
Lily, a little error that means so much to a woman who prides herself on perfectionism.
I know. And then, but something I do think I noticed, especially watching that performance, because I mean, the first time I saw it, I was so uncomfortable when she had fallen, but I noticed as she was performing, I almost thought it was on purpose because of the lyrics of the song. Like literally, she's like, if I fall down, I'll get up. And I was like, oh, maybe this was on purpose. And so I was kind of laughing it off.
For me, I guess because I've not only examined the music, but the person for so long, that look on her face when she got back up of like, it a bit like what you said, Megs. It was quite heartbreaking to see a mixture of what the hell is going on here, confusion, anger, but most of all, vulnerability,
Yeah.
which you don't see in her face very often. And that's the part that got me. She's so vulnerable. She's so alone almost in that one moment.
Yeah, she was rattled. It was really hard to watch. Yeah, definitely.
But what a pro, right, Rocco? I mean, she gets up, lifted me up and watched me stumble after the heartache. I'm going to carry on.
Well, it's funny that Lily said that because in the Jonathan Ross interview, he actually asked her, he said, there are some people who say that she did this on purpose because the lyrics of the song, and Madonna kind of jokingly said, I'm never writing lyrics like that ever again, because it totally was not meant to happen, but it also shows how in shape she was, because she fell, it didn't, maybe you couldn't tell from watching it, but she fell from a pretty high place, she could have seriously hurt herself, but, thank God she didn't.
No, and then I'm realizing actually it was, I think, almost 10 years before that performance she had fallen off the horse.
We moved through to track 2 of the album, Devil Pray. Now, this has got to be, I'll be interested, very curious to know what you all think of this. Devil Pray has got to be one of the standouts of the album. And again, the leak being quite, it's not different in terms of structure, but certainly the demo version of it leaked I prefer for some strange reason. It's not got any of the bells or whistles. And when the real track came out, I'm not going to lie, I was quite offended that they'd done what they'd done to this wonderful track.
There was an intro in the demo that got taken off of the final track, and I don't know why they did that, because when I listened to it the first time, the released version, it sounds like it just starts in the middle of a song, and I wonder why she didn't want to keep that intro, because I felt it was a nice way to start things off,
But the song itself, I mean, it invokes some strong imagery. We can do drugs and we can smoke weed and we can drink whiskey. Yeah, we can get high and we can get stoned. Let me continue. And we can sniff glue and we can do E and we can drop acid, forever be lost with no way home.
But I feel like part of it, especially when she's listing off the drug stuff, it doesn't sound authentic. It seems a bit like, I'm hip with the kids. Sniffing glue.
Ah, okay. Well, that's reasonable too, especially when Madonna hasn't had a heavy drug use history, that's for sure. So, okay, yeah, maybe trying to get a reaction where one isn't warranted. What about the imagery of the ground beneath my feet's getting warmer? Lucifer is near, holding on, but I'm getting weaker. Watch me disappear. Sometimes with Madonna, I know she's a fantastic songwriter, but there are plenty of tracks, most of which have leaked and we shouldn't have seen, I suppose, but where I think, those lyrics, come on, Madonna, they're pretty cheap or, unrefined. But when she hits the mark, I think she really hits the mark. And to me, this is poetry, this song.
Yeah, and there's a lot of religious themes in it. Like, she brings in Saint Mary as well. She's praying to Saint Mary, and that's why a lot of people have interpreted it to be the drugs, like narcotics, that connecting her to a higher level of consciousness and to God. And, it's all about, exploring sort of psychedelically, the world, the transcendent, I guess. And I find it very interesting. And I think the form of the song's a little bit Rhapsody-like as well. Like, it starts off with a guitar and then it builds up into sort of a house beat drop. And so I think it's a really unique and interesting song, and I love it.
Rocco?
I felt like this was something that came from a very real emotional place, because she mentioned in her acceptance speech in the GLAAD Awards last year, she said, she had so many friends that died, and she listed off several reasons, and one of them was drug use.
Yeah, I've heard Madonna talk about drug use so many times over the years, and my conclusion is that she is quite intolerant to it, actually. I think she understands it, but with her brother and with friends and obviously the people that she mixes with, and for someone herself who's so in control, I don't think she quite understands why anybody would put themselves at such risk and want to be so out of control. Let's move through. Ghost Town. This is a very huge fan favourite. Single number 2 from the album too. She announced that on Howard Stern's show, I believe. And the video is, it's beautiful. I love the video for it too. What are we making of Ghost Town?
Well, for me, I love Ghost Town. It's like one of my favorite tracks on the whole album. It's just a powerful ballad song, and it was written by lots of people as well. I think it's like you can tell when you listen to it because every lyric is sort of perfect. And yeah, I think the video clip was really powerful in expressing what the lyrics were trying to express, which is just, even in the worst of times, in the most desolate, horrible place, like you can find hope and love, or hope through love, I guess.
I would agree with Megs on that. I think the song is one of the best of the album. It's great. I think I love the auto-tune that she uses kind of at that beginning part to affect her voice and create that pattern. I think that was an interesting choice. Not in like a bad way, like an interesting, good choice. And I think overall the song is great.
I actually have a very fun memory associated with this song. When I saw the Rebel Heart tour at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, Ghost Town was not part of the regular set list for the show. And this was toward the beginning of the tour. And during that acoustic section where she did Who's That Girl and Rebel Heart, she, in the middle of that, surprised the audience and sang Ghost Town. And she was so moved by the audience's response to that she was in tears, crying at the end of the song. And it was a really cool, memorable night for that reason alone. I mean, it was a great show, but that was just, special. It felt more special because she wasn't, for some reason, she didn't add it to the regular set list. I'm not sure why that was, but that was a really cool night.
I'd also like to know, is this the one, I know I'm going to get this wrong, did she sing Ghost Town with Taylor Swift?
She did,
yeah,
but
that was at
Taylor on the guitar. Taylor wasn't singing.
That was at the iHeartRadio Awards, I think.
Yes. So Taylor did not sing with her.
Yeah.
It was just Taylor on guitar and Madonna was singing.
Unapologetic Bitch. Here we go, the first of the bitch songs on Rebel Hearts. A bit of reggae, man. How do we go with Unapologetic Bitch, Megs? It reminded me so much of a song, didn't it? Didn't I used to say that when this first came out? I was listening to it and going, it reminds me of something else. I finally got it, but now I've forgotten it again.
Well, I've got a really weird take that nobody will... Well, I can try and explain it, I guess.
Give it a try, Megs. Give it a try.
Well, obviously it's so different to Ghost Town. Like Ghost Town's like a beautiful, sort of heartfelt song. And this one's, like a really hard dance track, a pop track. But I actually think the lyrics are comparable in their meaning because while Ghost Town we talked about is about finding hope and love in the worst of times, I think this track is about having fun in the worst of times because I think it's sort of like a breakup track and it's talking about how I'm going to move on from it and I'm just going to live my life and, party anyway sort of thing. And so I think that there's a reason she put them next to each other.
It always reminds me of the tour, I have to admit, Unapologetic Bitch, because this is where she'd get the celebrities up on the stage and do the spanking and the humiliating and the degrading, but
really
very,
fun.
Very fun moments of the show.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned that because I always wondered if she saw Britney's Vegas show. Because Britney Spears in her Vegas show, which started, I think, a few years before the Rebel Heart tour, had a similar number where she brought a fan up on stage and did something very similar. So I wasn't sure if Madonna was sort of like redoing that her own way, but yeah, I remember that.
But how far back do you go? I remember Janet Jackson dragging people up, doing rope burn, I think it was. It's a pretty tried and true formula, I've got to say. Madonna did it best, though. I was really surprised when she got Ariana Grande up there, though, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't know
She
why.
had split ends.
Yes, that's right. Apparently she did. All those expensive hairdressers, Lily, and she still has split ends.
Mm-hmm. Okay, for me, I think this song is fun. The lyrics are fun. But I do think it's a little slow for me. Like, I wish it was either faster or even more slow, and it had, like, a different interpretation.
Illuminati. Now, this is crazy, and apparently written because Madonna was intrigued that she had been accused of being part of the Illuminati, which if you go on YouTube and on social media, you can find plenty of conspiracy theory about the Illuminati. But then I saw it on tour with that incredible. It doesn't come across on TV, does it, really? When you watch Illuminati on television in the concert version, means nothing. But when you were in that stadium, wowee, this was incredible moment of the show for me.
I really like the demo version. At first, I really, really liked the demo version better because I thought to myself, the song really benefits from having more of a dance beat to it, more of a faster tempo. But then when I saw the show, I totally agree with you. It totally elevated the album version for me. The dancers going on those things super high up was like insane. I thought the video backdrop was perfect, and it was just so perfectly, it captured the energy of the song, really.
Yeah, and I think the reason that the demo and the actual track is so different is because Kanye West came along and produced it and, put his own spin on it. And
now, I do not like this man, but I can't run him down for what he did on this album. He did a good job.
Yeah, no, definitely. And with Illuminati, everyone says it's unique, and it's sort of like, I've never quite heard something like it. And that's because, Kanye thought it was an interesting sound to go with. And I think, Madonna must have agreed.
Here's a question for you all. How many celebrities can you name from Illuminati?
Okay, so there was Beyonce, there was Lady Gaga, there was Justin Bieber, there was LeBron James,
Queen Elizabeth,
Jay-Z.
Yeah, there's Obama,
Kanye.
Everyone listening to this is yelling at the speakers right now.
Yeah,
you
missed.
If you knew the history, the Illuminati, it was actually people who were referencing people who were illuminated to like the highest knowledge or whatever. I'm paraphrasing. I can't remember exactly what she said, but that was sort of her point, is that people were acting like it was a bad thing, but she was saying they don't understand what the Illuminati, the roots of the Illuminati even were.
Enlightened. That's right. And Madonna considers herself so. Bitch on Madonna, featuring Nicki Minaj. Now, this is crazy, this song.
This is my favorite song on the album.
Tell us why.
It has an empowering aspect to it, and I would have been fine whether it had Nicki Minaj on it or not, because the original demo didn't have her on it, but I don't think that she takes away from the song at all. It's not your typical pop song in a way, musically, it's kind of, can be kind of jarring for some people, and I've noticed a lot of people who are longtime fans, especially from the very, very beginning of her career, are not very fond of this particular song. But for me, it follows the same tradition of fast dance songs that she's done that really have empowering lyrics and an empowering mood to them. And on those days when you need to sort of feel, when you're kind of having a bad day or you need to feel empowered, this is like one of my go-to songs, honestly.
Yeah, I can understand that. And look, Madonna's always loved a splash of eccentricity in her music. You think of Dear Jessie, you think of I'm Going Bananas. I put this in the same basket, and I know people will yell at me for that, and I accept that totally. But it's an eccentric song, and I think one of her goals when she started out creating Rebel Heart, at least in some of the sessions, was let's go as crazy and as out there and avant-garde as we possibly can with some of the tracks. And I think this is probably one of those that was born out of that. Not to mention it really feeds her ego, bitch on Madonna, just reminding people, yes, I might be this age and not as relevant as ever, but bitch, I'm Madonna, which is why the context of getting all those other celebrities into the video clip was actually so important. She's cementing that queen status yet again.
Yeah, and she's using dubstep, which is obviously something that's very popular with the younger generations and everything. So she's saying, I can dip into any genre I want. I'm Madonna, that sort of thing.
Adore the video. I think the video is so creative and so fun and funnily enough, not as slick, even though I know how much effort would go into something like that and expense, but it still comes back to something that you could do in a school production or at home almost. And I think that fed through when she did it, I think on Jimmy Fallon's show, the night show in the United States. She went right back to basics with it there too. And I love the fact that the kids are in it at the beginning, which offended a lot of people, but I mean, get over it, people. Kids are very resilient. And
I think they said
like they're adults.
Yeah, I think they said bitch, which annoyed a lot of people as well. Or at least they mouthed
it. Yeah. What do you make of the video, Lily? Did you like the sock puppets?
Oh my gosh. Again, I hope no one hates me for this, but I feel like Bitch I'm Madonna is a good, bad song. Like I love to listen to it. I sing along to it when it comes on, but I don't think it's a good song. I enjoy listening to it in the sense of like, oh my gosh, this is stupid fun, but like I do consider it not one of Madonna's prime moments, but I do enjoy it for what it is. And for the music
For what
video,
it
I
is,
would
right.
say what you said about how it could be like homemade and like done by a school production. You kind of said that as a positive. I would say that as a negative. Where like I don't want Madonna doing school production level things. I want Madonna doing bigger
Madonna
things.
hosts for Rocker Stedford. That's so true. I think she was aiming for that, let's face it. I'm always quite perturbed by the fact that she finally makes it to the top of this building. I take the elevator straight up to the rooftop. And I don't
Yeah.
even think she gets in an elevator. I think she walks upstairs. And then
Yeah.
once she's finally there, once she's achieved her goal, she just sort of humps around on things. And yeah,
And it does that
if
weird
that's her idea of
sound
fun,
at
that's
the
okay.
end, that cutting weird sound, like as it's coming towards the end of the song. It's such a weird sound. It's like a
It's a-
saw, like being edited in the audio.
It is very peculiar. I hate the fact that it's quite normal to me because I've heard it so many times, but it is a very peculiar track.
It's strange.
Well, and this was also in the age of, when videos had to have like a viral element to them, because now views on YouTube or Vivo count toward the Billboard charts, and so celebrities now like to get a bunch of different celebrity cameos in their videos, and as many as they can. And she kind of got criticized for some reason from people for some of those celebrities sort of phoned it in, so to speak, like they weren't there,
Yes.
but they recorded scenes. But I liked a lot of the cameos. Chris Rock was there, Rita Ora,
I love the
But
fact that her children in it. We've got Rocco and David are both in this, and I love seeing Rocco in it because there's a story there, my friends. There really is. He's quite estranged from his mother in some ways, I would say. Anyway, that's a very personal comment to make, but I just love the fact that he was there with David, and made me happy. I thought the whole video was very fun. A bit like what you said, Lily. If you take it for what it is, and just go with it, you've got no choice, really.
It's very easy to mock, though. Like Bart Baker or somebody did a parody of it, and it's just very, very funny because
my gosh, yes.
visually and everything. It's so easy to.
How do we find it on YouTube? Tell everyone.
Bart Baker, yeah, I think it's Bart Baker.
Yeah, he did a thing where like I don't want to say what it is, but it's a kind of funny idea to take it. I feel like some Madonna fans might get mad at it, but I think it's funny.
Oh yeah.
Track 7 on the album is Hold Tight. Now, I believe this was released in Italy. Is this the track, or have I got that wrong?
It was the third single in Italy. I love this song so much. I think it's so dreamy, especially in the chorus. It's a great choice of a song to be on the album, in my opinion.
I love the beginning of this track. For any 80s kids out there, you might remember the film called Neverending Story. The beginning, only the first 5-10 seconds, it just reminds me so much of Neverending Story. I don't know why. Leave a comment if you think that I'm mad. Leave a comment if you think that I'm right. I'll be curious to know. Rocco, what do you make of Hold Tight?
I love the song, and this is another kind of song conceptually that she has on this album. She has like romantic records, she has like more button pushing records, she has and then this sort of brand would be like the empowering motivational kinds of records, and Iconic fits in with that theme too. This song to me is, I think vocally, the arrangements is what I love more than anything. I mean, I love the message, but I love MNEK's backgrounds. I don't know if he co-wrote the song or what his involvement was, but on some of the other demos that got leaked, his background vocals are more prominent, and I actually like those better. But I think that the finished version is still really, really good, and it's kind of, I feel like this is a nice sister record to Living for Love.
But I do want to acknowledge that this is, I believe, one of the only times we see a Madonna exclusive produced track.
Can we talk about track 8, Joan of Arc? I really enjoy this song. For me, it was one of the standouts right from the beginning. I prefer it over Ghost Town. Boo, everyone says, but I don't know why. I find them similar in some ways, and I find Joan of Arc the superior track. It also reminds me, not musically but lyrically, of Drowned World from Ray of Light, in the sense that she's really talking about the media and how they impact on her life and how they make her feel desolate, lonely, so popular that's yet so isolated. All of those themes are coming up here.
I think she allows herself to be vulnerable with these lyrics and, just express the fact that she's human and that, it does hurt her to be talked about and vilified badly, subject to all sorts of criticisms. And I think
Madonna loves her historical figures. And Joan of Arc, I know she's been fascinated with Joan of Arc for the longest time. It came out through Madame X again. There were references to that through the Dark Ballet. And it's Catholic reference as well. Joan of Arc being a Catholic saint.
I think it's a great track. I do think I appreciate the minimal production on it. Like Ghost Town's kind of a power ballad, whereas Joan of Arc's more of like a piano interlude situation that I really appreciate for what it is.
When Rebel Heart was released, my least favourite track, in fact, I'd go as far as to say I hated it, was track 9, Iconic. And then I sat there in the stadium waiting for Madonna hour after hour after hour, putting up with that hideous rapping woman who came on before her, putting up with people getting restless, some people walking out, the people next to us getting drunker and drunker, and then poking both you and I and saying, you're brothers, all of that. And then she comes down in the cage and she performs Iconic. And ever since that moment, like so many Madonna tracks, actually, once I see them live, I now love Iconic.
Yeah.
Well, that opening in person, I don't know if it translated that well to the live DVD, but when you were in person, it was so epic seeing the dancers arrive on stage in those like gladiator outfits. And I always loved the finished version of the song. Yeah, I always loved the finished version of this song. The original demo that got leaked was like a piano, like acoustic version, but I think I definitely loved the melody and knew that there was going to be like lots of things done to it. And I love the empowering aspect to it as well.
Yeah, and she opens with Mike Tyson as part of that, empowering aspect.
I was so surprised she managed to get that man to string a sentence together in the studio. She did. I think that's the performance of the year for Madonna.
It was so powerful and potent, that bit where he comes out on the big screens and he's just sort of yelling at you motivational things, and she comes out and does her equally motivating song, which is just about knowing that you're amazing, basically. Yeah, it's good.
I do dislike the addition of Chance the Rapper. I think he doesn't do anything for the song. And I often fast forward through his part whenever I can.
I actually like that bit. Before the concert, if you'd said that she was going to open with Iconic, you'd go, what? Why wouldn't she open with one of the other ones?
Absolutely.
But when you actually experience it,
makes sense.
It's so right.
Every one of her tours tells a story.
Yeah.
And I know this is going to probably sound strange, but I'm sure Madonna would get what I mean. Michael Jackson, Prince, Whitney Houston, all the icons that we know that were of that league. There are plenty of big celebrities from that era still left, but the icons of that era, she is the only one left. She is the only one left, in my opinion. That got to that stratosphere at least.
Yeah, which is sad, really.
Heartbreak City, track 10. And just before we go any further, let's all have a stretch, because this is a big album and we are doing the deluxe version here, my friends. If there's people listening, I wonder if they're going to do the deluxe. Yes, we are. I've drawn the line at all the other tracks. We'll do some honorable mentions towards the end, but we could be here for the next 4 hours if we go through every track and every version of every track as well. Yeah. Heartbreak City, apparently written about some young toy boy she had that she broke up with and she wasn't very happy with and broke her heart. Again, love the performance from the Rebel Heart tour of this. Wasn't a huge fan when I first heard it. The tour's reinvented my perception of this song. I really quite enjoy it. I think it's great.
I love the mashup with Love Don't Live Here Anymore. I think that was such a smart choice.
I think in the demo well, it sounded like she sampled Michael Jackson's "They Don't Care About Us," but in the album version, it sounds like she added a bunch of instrumentation on top of that to sort of mask the sample. And I'm not sure. I'm just saying that's what it sounds like. I'm not saying this is a fact or not, but I remember when the demo leaked, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, she sampled They Don't Care About Us," and it sounds like that part in the beginning of "They Don't Care About Us," towards the end. And I'm not sure if she did that on purpose or if that was just a coincidence, but.
And it definitely reminds me of Ghost Town too. I often get them mixed up, actually, Heartbreak City and Ghost Town. And
really,
when I hear Heartbreak City, I think of the Ghost Town video clip as well. And I don't know if that's just because there's a thematic thread, or
I
if
think
it's
you're
just...
quite unwell.
Don't say that.
I agree with him, actually. I would agree. They're both kind of the.
I don't agree with him, Lily. For those who don't know, Megs is my son, and I'm allowed to mock him when I want. Go on, Lily, rush to his defense.
No, I'm just saying I agree. They're both these very cinematic ballads that are very similar in production. Looking at the credits, they share a lot of the same co-writers and producers. So it would make sense.
One of the fans listening will be able to tell us if it was written in the same sessions, and possibly then I will be mocked and I will be wrong. Track 11, Body Shop. No, I'm just going to pass. Can we move straight to track 12, anybody?
I just want to say I love the ending of the chorus, and that's really it. But other than that, the song's kind of cheesy and feels weird.
So you like about 4 seconds of the song? That's good, Lily?
Yeah,
Megs?
after she says the word bender, I like, oh, that's so nice, and then I skip.
When it got leaked in the beginning, I didn't think this was going to go on the album. I thought this was going to be one of those songs that, she kind of worked on in the studio, but all along she probably knew, this isn't going to go on the album. But then it went on the album. And I do think that the percussion that she added to the song helped it a great deal. I think it elevated it in a way, and it made it better. But even still, I'm thinking she's not going to do the song in the show, surely, she can't possibly do a good, interesting performance of this song. And then she puts it in the show. So, she's full of surprises.
What she did was clever, though, like with the mechanics, and I thought the performance sort of justified it being in the concert a lot. Actually,
it
was good. It was like it told a little story.
It did. Told a story. It was when I went and got some popcorn from the foyer. Gave me a break.
Intermission.
Not really.
Yeah.
But then, of course, she moves on to track 12, Holy Water, and personally, I think I'm sure she had her hands in it, whoever ordered the songs in this went, oh, God, well, we're going to have to come back with something really good after that. And Holy Water, fantastic. Love this track. It is old school Madonna, not necessarily musically, but in terms of all those references and sort of fingers up to the church and controversy around nuns. And she loves the imagery, the fashion, the iconography of the Catholic Church, and didn't she take it to the next level in the actual concert tour itself? I remember sitting there I was just laughing, to be honest. I'm like, here she goes. And then when she climbed on top of the nuns and started, oh my God.
And then they recreated the Last Supper.
Yes. Then she goes up to the altar.
Wearing a crucifix.
This is another song that Kanye worked on.
Back in the day, she would have been put in jail.
Yeah.
Okay, but I do really enjoy this song. I think this was the first song I heard that made me go, I need to listen to this album.
Are any of you offended by this song?
I mean,
No.
I find it hard to be offended by this something that's talking about something in a crude way, when it's normally not, and how the Catholic Church or the church wouldn't like it. Like, I just think that freedom of speech, and freedom of expression.
It's pretty explicit, though, what she says about Jesus. If you were someone who,
I think it was brilliant that she was working with Kanye in the song, and she could say Jesus instead of Jesus. That was smart.
Yeah.
Explain that to me.
Because she can't, you can't argue that she's offending anyone, because she's not saying Jesus loves my pussy best. She's saying Yeezus.
Who's Yeezus?
Kanye.
Kanye calls himself Yeezus.
She's obviously saying that Jesus. She's obviously
Yeezus.
alluding to him.
Oh no, I'm more offended. I'm very offended now. I wasn't offended when I thought it was Jesus. Now that it's Kanye West, I'm extremely offended.
Yeah, you don't like Kanye.
Holy water! It's a great track musically too. It's got a thumping bass line. I just love it. I think it's an incredibly well constructed song.
Yeah, and when it samples Vogue, it hits it home so well.
How good is that? Come on, fans on the line. You must love the referencing one of her biggest and most
iconic.
I like the fact that she included that, but I have to say I'm not sure why, because Vogue lyrically has nothing to do with holy water. I'm not. I mean, maybe it was because of the music.
True.
I do think it left room, though, for her to do more of Vogue in the live show. And I knew before I even saw anything with the show, when I went there, I was like, she's definitely going to do more of Vogue in the performance. And I was really happy she did.
We're coming towards the end of the album now. Track 13 is Inside Out.
It's a filler for me. I'm not a huge list. I think those like first opening bass synths are nice, but then I kind of get bored.
I like the fact that this is like a positive love song, because she has a lot of heartbreak, angry love songs on the album. The fact that this is an optimistic, happy, love song, to me, it's a welcome addition to the album. And I think the melody of it is really, really pretty and really nice.
So we move to the final track of the album, Wash All Over Me. This track really stood out to me when I was listening to the demos in the car. I really enjoyed this. And even though I've come to really enjoy the album version, I still can't help going back to that demo version of Wash All Over Me. I much prefer it. This is a song you can sing with, unlike some of the other tracks on the album. What are we making of Wash All Over Me?
I agree that the demo was... the demo to me is superior, but I think the demo is really... It draws you in, especially with what she's saying, versus just a simple piano ballad.
I feel like the demo is definitely the version that I would prefer to listen to, but I feel like that kind of disco sound is not what she was sonically going for with this album. So I understand why she changed it. And I think the version that she ended up using really helps you focus on the lyrics more. And it works as a closer. Like, I don't think of it as the closer because to me, the 19-track version, like Rebel Heart, is the real closer for the album. But if you do get the standard version, I think this is definitely a good way to close that part of the album off, and it's a nice, her closing tracks always seem to have some kind of message lyrically. And this one is like a great thought-provoking song to kind of leave the listener with.
Yeah, I think all of us can agree. It sounds really well as a second last song to me. Rebel Heart, how it is not the final track on the standard issue is beyond me. I have no idea how that happened. So let's move through to the deluxe edition. Again, take a stretch, everybody. Take a sip of tea. Just take a deep breath. We're getting there. A 19-track deluxe album. We're pretty spoilt as Madonna fans. Best Night is track 15.
This is the track this is the track I was talking about with a Justify My Love reference.
Ah, okay. Tell us why.
Well, in the bridge, she literally says, "I'm waiting," or it's literally the quote from Justify My Love.
Yes.
I'm blanking on it now, where she's like wanting, needing, waiting for you.
You're right.
So,
yeah.
I love the Justify My Love reference. I feel like this is one of my top 3 favorites. Bitch I'm Madonna is number 1. I think Iconic is number 2, and this is definitely number 3. I like how sensual it is and how it is very sexual, but it's not sexual in a way that's trying to shock you or be provocative. It's coming from, I think, a very romantic place, and this is, I think, lyrically, it has a very R&B feel to it musically, and I love that, but I love lyrically how she conveys those emotions in this song.
I'm going to let somebody else introduce track 16. How do you pronounce it?
It's Veni Vidi Vici.
I don't know.
At first,
doesn't it mean I came, I saw, I conquered? Is that what it means?
Yeah, it's Latin.
Ignorant Australians here. I'm sorry. We only know one language, and that's Australian. So that's what it means. What language is this? Latin, did you say?
Yeah. This song I love because it's her. I feel like around this time she began to get more comfortable with her past. And there's another song in this vein that was on the Super Deluxe edition that I want to talk about later when we do our honorable mentions. But this song, the fact that she's telling her story of her career and how she got to where she is today, it's again in the vein of Iconic and Hold Tight, very motivational, very inspiring. And she's one of those artists who can do these kinds of songs and you believe her and you do get inspired by the message because she actually did that. She struggled. She worked really, really, really hard to get where she is. And it's the kind of thing where, if she can do it, then you feel you can do it too.
The ultimate reference song, this one, isn't it, Meg? She references her own work. Now, as a group, let's try to do this really well. What are the songs that she references of her own? We've got Into the Groove.
Power of Goodbye.
I remember Borderline Holiday.
Like a Virgin.
Sort of Erotica.
Vogue.
She uses the word erotic from memory. I love how many she got in there. Open Your Heart, Ray of Light, I believe. And music, didn't she, as well? She sort of references music as been the revival of her career. Well, this one's going to cause some conversation, I believe. Track 17 is SEX.
Yay.
I don't know what that spells, Megs, but I believe this song, it sort of divides fans. A lot of people saying it's just silly. For me, I don't know, maybe because I'm an older fan, it just threw me back to the erotica era a bit, not just because of the word, but because of the sound. It's a little bit mystical. It's a little bit like you've walked into a red light district, I suppose. And I'm shameless. I love when she lists all the ridiculous sexual references in one line. I have to admit, I really love that part of the song, sad and tragic as it is.
Yeah, but what I've read about this is that people see it as a criticism of hedonism and, just diving into sexual pleasure, but I don't agree with that. I think it's because they say she sings it in a dispassionate way and it's sort of like, oh, this is just a shallow thing that we're doing just for pleasure. It's not about love or anything. But I think it's less a criticism and more just a brief indulgence of it, just acknowledging it. And, she's always talked about sexuality and I think this song is just, speaking about, singing about it openly. And yeah, I don't think it's criticism of hedonism, but just a reference to it.
I don't know. It's hard to find the words to describe it, but I like the kind of attitude that it has. And I really, really, really enjoyed the interlude on the tour. I really liked how she had not just straight couples, but gay couples as well. And she used the video clips from Erotica on the video screen, which I'm not sure why. I know people say she filmed in a vignette for an interlude, but ended up not using it.
I mean, we have to face it. I mean, maybe I've led a very, very sheltered life, but some of the references in that delightful little list that she has towards the end of the song where she talks about leather mask, high heels, golden mask, perfume, switchblade, Epsom, Novocaine, chopsticks? Chopsticks? Hello?
I think it's
go for it. Explain to me where chopsticks come from.
I think there's a lot of humor in this song too, I'm
glad because I find it funny.
It's so similar to Devil Prey in that way. Like she just lists off the drugs so comprehensively in Devil Prey, and then this one she lists off, the sexual acts. And I don't think either a criticism. They're just sort of exploring it and traversing that landscape and what it implies. And I think with Devil Prey, it was definitely about the transcendent, whereas here it's just about pleasure.
Lily, help me out with this one. Fish nets, satin sheets, garter belt, raw meat. Raw meat? What's she doing with Devon in the bedroom that I don't know about?
Sounds like bareback.
Or baloney, as you call it over there. Oh.
Was that too explicit?
I'm really giving myself away here. You're absolutely right. It's not literally raw meat. Oh, God. How embarrassing.
It's, again, it sounds kind of cheesy to me. I think when you compare it to erotica, there's this mystery. There's this poeticness to it. Where this is like, what do you know about sex? Absinthe and Novocaine, whips. It's like, okay, it's in your face. We get it.
I have to round this off by saying golden shower, latex thong, licorice whip, strap it on.
Well, today it's harder to shock people because back then people were so much more conservative sexually. And so today she has to go all out to get any reaction, I guess.
What the devil?
Oh my gosh. Is this the song where she talked about, oh no, never mind. I was thinking about the erotic song that was in the sex book, because I was like, didn't she talk about dripping wax? But no, that was in that one.
Dental chair, only Madonna. Track 18, Messiah. Who'd like to kick us off?
I really like this song. I like the interlude. Again, I keep mentioning the interludes, but I love, she used the full album versions of these songs in the shows for the interludes. And I love this part of the show. I thought that the guy dancing, doing that choreography was brilliant.
I like the demo version of the song more, just because I feel like it was more cinematic with the orchestral elements. I feel like this one that she released officially was very piano heavy, but the demo was a lot more cinematic and orchestral.
Well, on a humorous note, with the concert, with that part when the person's doing that, dramatic act with the sheet or whatever it is all around him, Dad made me crack up because he just said, he's trying to make the bed and he can't. I just found that hilarious, and we were laughing hysterically at that part.
You're the only son who appreciates dad jokes. Well, that's very nice of you.
That's a very good dad joke, I must say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it was like blowing all around you. We couldn't get a hold on it.
It really did remind me of you trying to make the bed. It really did.
True,
that's all I could say. That's all I could think of. It wasn't even meant to be a joke. It was actually true. The final track on the album is Rebel Hearts. Although, can I just go back to that? You've never even attempted to make the bed. It's what I imagine you'd look like if you tried to make the bed. No, you haven't. You've never made a bed in your life. Track 19, Rebel Heart, is the last track on the album. I know, to a worldwide audience.
Feeling very abashed.
I love this song. Madonna often references her father. Here's a perfect segue. In so much of her music, he's such a heavy influence, even when she doesn't directly reference Papa Don't Preach, all of that sort of stuff. But Rebel Heart, I know it's not all about her dad, certainly, but she references Dad again, and I often imagine him listening to this because he does come to her shows and he does look up with such a face of admiration and confusion, quite frankly. But here it is again. I love the track Rebel Heart.
Well, she did the Sacred Project Revolution film right before this, and she did that interview with Vice. And in the beginning of that interview, she talks about how when she was at school, she would get made fun of because she would go out of her way to look different and be different because she didn't want to be like everybody else. And she would come home and she would cry, and her father would tell her, what did you expect people to say when you're going out of your way to be different? And that's what she talks about in the beginning of that interview. And when I was listening to the song, that's pretty much what she's talking about in the first verse.
The music is uplifting, yet the message behind it tells such a strong story about how Madonna felt in her younger years and possibly still does now, like being so different. And I think that's why so many fans resonate, or Madonna resonates with so many fans, is because we often feel on the fringes as well. We feel different. We feel like we're not part of the tribe, in inverted commas. And this song really goes to the heart of that. She talks about, thought I belonged to a different tribe, walking alone, never satisfied, trying to fit in, but it wasn't me. I said, oh no, I want more. That's not what I'm looking for. So in other words, the moment she embraced being a pariah, being on the fringes, being different, and actually accepting, okay, fine, that's the rest of the world walk that way, but I don't see that. I'm going down a different road. Those sort of lyrics really resonate with me.
Yeah, like dropping out of school and, wanting to go to New York and dance rather than do the normal thing that people do, because there's not many people that have lived a life like she has.
And as Rocco said too, the affirmation of her father in this song, although there's also the reference to the father saying, told you so, him struggling too with a daughter who didn't fit in. It must have been part of his story is told in this track.
This song, like I said earlier, this is my favorite song on the album, especially the demo version. I would say they're both amazing, but the demo version kind of has that leg up that makes it feel superior to me. But I think this song, when looking back at some of her older songs, it gives a very similar vibe to songs like Ray of Light, where it's like, these are those songs where if there's like a movie or like a soundtrack to Madonna's album, this is the song you close with. It's the finale. It's a masterpiece that you end on.
Beautiful way to round off the deluxe version of the album.
And the Avicii demo that he did in that first batch of demos that got leaked for this particular song, I understand that that's not sonically probably what she was going for the album, but it is so good. It is like the chorus is, with the background vocals is very different than what you hear on the album, but it's so good. And I wish she would have done something with it, maybe make it a remix or something, because the fact that it's remained a demo to me is kind of sacrilege. I don't know.
Lily, can you take us through a little bit of a snapshot, a little bit of detail about how Rebel Heart performed?
Well, for a lot of countries around the world, it did go to number one. Places like Canada and Australia, which is nice. Actually, in Australia, I found this out. She tied with U2 for the most number one albums in Australia for 11 total. That could have increased
absolutely
more with Madam X, but at that time. And then in the UK and the US, it debuted at number 2. And then in the US, this was the first album, this is bizarre, the first album since Ray of Light not to debut at number 1.
So it performed fairly well across the world, but like typical Madonna style, we find that those first week sales are huge because she has such a dedicated, longing fan base who snap everything up, and plus there were different versions, and plus the promotion around it was pretty good as well. Is it fair to say that this performed well commercially?
Well, I mean, like sales-wise, I would say yes. It sold within a year. It had 1 million total worldwide sales, which is great. But I would say especially comparing it to Madam X and what happened with the charts, it did drop heavily after that first week of peaking.
It's so hard to calculate the success of the album these days, though, with YouTube and Spotify, and you don't need to pay for it anymore. So I find it difficult.
But all the artists are in the same market, though. That's the way I look at it. So the sales are, I think for Rebel Heart, we're talking about in the United States, it sold hundreds of thousands of whatever number that is. Whereas back in the day, I remember Erotica was accused of performing commercially very poorly because it sold 2 million in the first 6 weeks of its release, and that was considered very low. So that gives you a good sense of, we were talking about millions of units back in the day. Now it's something is successful if it sells hundreds of thousands. And in Australia, it got to number one, as Lily just pointed out, but it got to number one based on around sales of, I think it was around 6,000 to 7,000 copies, which is sort of for our two guests here on the line from the United States, that would be quite laughable. But that's what got it to number one in Australia.
I wrote a very glowing review of the album when it first came out. And I actually said in the headline that I wrote, I said, Rebel Heart is Madonna's best album since Confessions on a Dance Floor. And I still stand by that to this day. And a lot of other reviewers were actually expressing similar sentiments, that this was her best work in a decade and definitely her strongest album in a while. And after MDNA, which I found pretty lackluster in my personal opinion, I was very pleasantly surprised and happy with how much I enjoyed this album. And that seemed to be, like I said, what a lot of the critics were saying.
Yeah, a lot of them were saying best since, as you wrote at the time, since Confessions. Some even said the best since the Music album. Lauren Murphy of the Irish Times, she gave it 4 out of 5, and she wrote, it was the first time in years that Madonna doesn't sound desperate, and she praised it and compared it to Hard Candy and MDNA, which some people do accuse of being desperate albums. And then she continued, the indisputable pop icon is back with a tentative bang. So, critically, I remember at the time reading lots and lots of reviews, and most people were saying it was a strong album. There was quite a lot of commentary around it being a bit of a mishmash and not quite knowing what it needed to be. Other people saying, even though it seemed on the surface not to be cohesive, it actually was somehow cohesive. But then other people, as you started out, Meg, saying it's hit and miss. There's some brilliant work on this album and there's some not so brilliant work. And to be honest, from the conversation we've had tonight during this podcast, that's what I'm hearing from everyone on the line, that there are some highs, but there are some insufferable lows.
Body Shop, yeah.
Hey, someone liked Body Shop. Now, don't name names. That's rude.
Yeah.
Just the chorus I like. Jeez.
You Body Shop defender, you. You're not welcome back around these parts. Oh, no. Okay, let's round this off. How does this album sit in the Madonna landscape amongst all her albums? I also find it really interesting when I contrast this against Madam X, because I can see the progression and some of the themes that she's stayed with and some of the ones she's dropped away. Where does it sit in Madonna's landscape, do we all think?
I think that this album is one of those albums that she could have only made that this far into her career. You know, throughout her career, she's made albums, Erotica, Ray of Light, Like a Prayer, American Life. You know, those albums all are directly personal to me in ways that some of her other albums aren't. She knows who she is and she's secure in that. And I think that's what she's representing on this album.
So well said, Rocco. Before I go to Lily and Meg for their summation of Rebel Heart, do you have any standout or honourable mention tracks that you'd like to mention before we wrap up?
Yes, there's 3 that are on the Super Deluxe Edition. The first one is Borrowed Time, which to me, I think the demo that Avicii did is like the Rebel Heart demo, so much more superior to the album version. I loved his production on that, and on the chorus, it just hits you so well and so hard, and I loved the message of the song lyrically, the social consciousness of it. And I also really like the song Addicted. To me, that song sounds like a song she could have been doing in New York City in like the late 70s, early 80s when she was first starting out, when she was in all those like punk bands. It just felt like that time for me. And I love that song. And I also really love Graffiti Heart, because this is another one of those songs where she references people that she knew. She mentions Keith Haring. She mentions, you know, that whole street art scene that she was a part of and that she hung around in New York when she was first starting out in her career. And to hear her, you know, reference that on a song and sort of reminisce and use that as a way to defend artists and people in general having their right to express themselves. To me, that's such a great track. And I'm glad she used it in some way for this album. I would have hated for that to have been a song that got left unreleased, because to me it's so important.
Good on you, Rocco. Thank you very much. Lily, I'll let you sum up, but do you still listen to this album?
I listen to pieces here and there, but to the album as a whole, I really do not listen to this album that often. I'm glad that we have Rocco here to kind of talk about the good and the positives of this album, because to me, Rebel Heart is a very middle-of-the-road, lower-end album of Madonna's to me. I think, kind of commenting on what he said, where you get all these layers in Madonna, whereas all the other albums, you get like one aspect of her, but this is all of them. I feel like by getting all of them, you're not getting deep enough.
Yeah, well, I fully agree with Lily, like that it's not an album you sit down and listen to the whole thing like you do with her other ones in order and love the journey that it takes. Like some of the songs you just want to skip by the end, like someone said with Illuminati. Some of the songs, you know, you don't even want to listen to at all, but then other ones you really like. That's why I called it hit and miss. And definitely I somewhat identify with that critique that it's trying to do everything at once, and so it's less cohesive than her other works. Although I think maybe the cohesion is that it's so multifaceted and it's got so many different songs, so I don't know really where I stand on that. But I would say that it's probably better than Madam X and less good than Hard Candy, and I always stand by that. You know, I prefer her earlier works to everything. Like, just they trump everything.
And for me, I just have such a soft spot for Rebel Heart. I mean, this was the first time that Madonna came back to Australia in more than 20 years since The Girly Show. So sometimes for me, I don't know if it's the album that I've got a soft spot for or the whole era. With Madonna, she blurs those two things so well. I love the fascination of the way things leaked. I love the fact that Madonna had to respond to a very vulnerable moment in her career through the leaking of the album. And I love the fact that I got to see her human side when things didn't always go according to plan, such as The Fall at the Brits. I love the album. I think it's got incredible highs. There are certainly tracks that I skip, though, and I hate saying that about Madonna. I like to think that I can appreciate nearly everything for what it is. But at the same time, I will say again that a lot of the tracks that I wasn't too taken with at first, the Rebel Heart tour itself, turned that on its head. Seeing them live, it's like, okay, now I get this song. I get where she was coming from, and I love it now.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, even though she was like 4 hours late, the concert was incredible. It was one of the best things I've ever done in my life. And she drew on so many different albums cohesively with the Rebel Heart album. And yeah, definitely the concert redeems anything I didn't like about the Rebel Heart album itself.
So Rocco, Lily and Megs, thank you so much for talking Rebel Heart tonight. Are you all doing well? Have you stretched out after that mammoth epic session because it was such a long album? You're all doing all right?
Yes, thank you for having me again. I really enjoyed this discussion.
Thank you so much for bringing so much positivity into this discussion tonight.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Good on you guys. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Bye.